The story takes place in a world that has been invaded by flesh-eating demons, the Keiki. Shinigami AI is a simple boy who serves in the army to fight the Keiki. After his first battle, he merges with the demon king Nosferatu and escapes death. By merging with the king of the Keiki, the protagonist gains unimaginable powers. In addition to these powers, he also becomes immortal, reviving every time he is killed. Nosferatu and the protagonist decide to form an alliance to defeat a common enemy. Besides Nosferatu's powers, AI also possesses a suit that enhances his strength and abilities. Due to his immortality and always being the last one standing in battles, he earns the nickname Reaper. In a battlefield ablaze with many bodies, we see a man. A gigantic monster stares down the man who approaches wielding his sword. He advances toward the gaping maw of the terrifying monster. The swordsman is injured but manages to complete his attack on his dreadful opponent. The boy in a battle stance at the location is asked how many henchmen are there. He replies that there are approximately 30, but they are practically dead. From his left hand, a scarlet energy begins to flow through his fingers. This energy takes the form of waves and surrounds him. With red, confident eyes, he declares that he is the Reaper. A few months ago, in a beautiful and vast field full of butterflies, as a new recruit in the army, he completed 6 months of training. Some military trucks are traveling along a road in the middle of the fields. He is shaking in a truck, on his way to the front lines, and we see some people inside a vehicle. The boy is Xiao Shanlan, 18 years old, a hand-to-hand combat fighter and a newly trained recruit. For the sake of the immigrant street people, he arrived and seems quite apprehensive. The other man sitting across from him grumbles. He is Gu Jing Wulu, also 18 years old, who is dissatisfied with being in the last place of training. The other recruits agree with him and laugh at the other soldier. He shouts for Shanlan not to drag him down as he intends to be an elite soldier. The boy tells him to be careful with his words so as not to disrespect the veterans who have already left. Wulu gets irritated, stands up, and tells the protagonist not to dare respond to him like that. He manages to lift the boy with one hand and says that he has been arrogant since training. Trying to adjust his glasses that are falling off his face, Shanlan grumbles. Making fun of him, the spiky-haired one says that the boy is truly weak. Widening his eyes, the protagonist holds his glasses firmly. One of the other boys present seems very scared by something he saw. From the back exit of the truck, a giant monster's eye can be seen watching them. Before any of them could do anything, the creature opens its mouth and lets out a roar. This causes the truck to explode into several pieces. Shanlan is still alive, falling out of the wreckage of the vehicle. Very injured, he gets up and wonders what happened. The remains of the truck where he was are on fire, and he walks along the road. Several soldiers in the same uniform as the protagonist and armed are shooting non-stop. While questioning if they are veterans, several devastating explosions occur on the battlefield. Some monsters in the distance are shooting fireballs, and Shanlan wonders who they are fighting. This is truly hell. A man in a beret begins to command attacks against the enemies. The protagonist falls to the ground, still incredulous at what he is witnessing. He is scared by the fact that the enemy is there, and this will be his first combat. Continuing to walk through the battlefield, he comes across someone fallen. It is the lifeless body of someone who fought bravely until the end. The scene shocks the boy, who begins to panic upon seeing a lifeless body. Terrifying memories from his childhood start to resurface. Shanlan, when he was still small, witnessed a horrible scene. That dread of seeing his parents being devoured right before his eyes. The terrified face of the dead man on the battlefield brought him these memories. He can remember the attack of the horrific and merciless monster. It was so frightening that it caused the trauma he has yet to overcome. But the protagonist will overcome this. The boy's expression changes completely, and what was fear transforms into rage. Screaming is an animal instinct. He crouches to grab a weapon that was within his reach, and begins to shoot at them for killing his comrades, without mercy for the horrendous creatures. The hero continues advancing toward the enemies while firing, but a fireball hits him squarely, halting his progress. Before he could do anything, he is thrown through the air, even more injured than before. The explosive fireball caused significant damage to his vitality. Now fallen on the battlefield, our protagonist is defenseless and wounded. Gradually regaining consciousness, he notices something. He manages to get up, gathering his strength, and wonders where the enemy is. And looking around, he cannot find any of his companions either. He can see many bodies of the already defeated monsters, and he wonders if the battle is over. Frightened, he realizes that he lost consciousness and ended up missing part of the battle. He calls out for Gu Jing and Jing Shang while walking through the battlefield. Despite calling for all his partners, apparently no one besides him survived. Shanlan cannot hold back his tears and begins to cry upon realizing he is alone. Falling to his knees on the battlefield, which resembles a cemetery, he screams. But in the distance, someone can be heard speaking a few words through the cloudy sky. The protagonist notices that there is someone else nearby. Unsure if it is a survivor, he seems hopeful and stands up. A group of terrifying monsters is mercilessly striking something on the ground. Frightened, Shanlan aims his weapon at them, imagining that someone is alive there. He fires the weapon, shouting for the monsters to stay still. Running while shooting, he approaches them and manages to hit one. The four-armed monster uses its upper limbs to deliver a blow, and it unleashes a fire attack towards the protagonist, who still advances with his weapon. Skillfully, he manages to dodge the attack, which grazes his head. He successfully hits the monster, which falls defeated to the ground. Counting this one, he has already taken down 2. The other one comes at the boy with its sharp claws, and with a strike from behind, the creature manages to hit him violently. The claw pierces Shanlan's chest, and he falls heavily wounded to the ground. The boy turns to face the injuries caused by that attack, and in a scream of despair, he realizes that he has lost his arm. The relentless monster is coming after him, and he doesn't have much time to defend himself. Crawling on the ground, he tries to reach for his arm to grab the weapon, and in a swift movement, he manages to aim the weapon at the monster and shoot, thus avoiding the attack and hitting the hideous creature squarely in the head. The terrifying beast lies lifeless beside him, and he, completely exhausted and without his right arm, is victorious. Almost losing consciousness, he celebrates that he managed to win the battle, but interrupting his near fainting, a voice asks if he saved her. Instinctively, even without knowing whose voice it is, he replies that he did. He says that someone was about to die in front of him, so obviously, he would save her. The voice says that he is someone interesting and that something is decided. With a trembling and tired voice, he asks what is decided. The voice asks him to let her enter his body, and without understanding anything, he asks what she just said. And we see a man sitting on a large imposing throne. This man, with red hair and a regal demeanor, orders the human to rise. 50 years ago, spheres with tentacles descended towards planet Earth. Seeds flew through space, and several fireballs struck the horizon, frightening all Earthlings. The seeds landed all over the world. Civilians are terrified by what they see, and some run to escape. A kind of black egg begins to hatch and release a lot of smoke. Inside, sharp claws can be seen breaking free. Extraterrestrial life forms began to appear. Some monsters emerge, some of them are flying, and others are terrestrial. They are ghosts from the other world, also known as boundary ghosts. Entire cities were set ablaze, as if it were the end of the world. Most of the time, they act in groups. A terrifying monster is feeding on a type of flesh, human flesh. A flag is raised. The flag features a shield with a sword and a weapon. Humans united to begin fighting against these evil forces. Planet Earth needs to be protected from this entire threat. Nowadays, the United Army has established a troop, but humans are struggling to survive. We approach a continent. The voice firmly orders the human to rise, and Shanlan opens his eyes, hardly believing he is still alive. He is lying next to the monster that just ripped off his arm, but he is intact. The boy is confused about what happened. Remembering the face he saw and the order he received to rise, he wonders if it was a dream. Our protagonist sits up, looking at his left hand, which has something curious. A kind of friendly little man with red hair, resembling a fairy. Incredulous, Shanlan stares at that creature, not quite understanding what it is. The creature that took the place of his hand asks how he is. The boy continues to scream, and the creature judges that he seems to be doing very well. With a trembling and stuttering voice, he asks what that thing is. The little creature tells him to kneel because he is Nosferatu, the king of the boundary ghosts. Like someone who has seen a ghost, Shanlan is shocked and cannot believe it. He repeats what the creature just said, somewhat suspiciously, and Nosferatu confirms. The protagonist realizes that he has been assimilated with a boundary ghost and wonders how this is possible. Nosferatu explains that the two made a contract. Shanlan then remembers the voice he heard when he lost his arm. He also recalls that it said someone was about to lose their life in front of him, and that he heard this voice saying he was interesting, and that something was decided. When he was about to lose consciousness, he asked what the person would do, and the voice said it would reside in him from now on. The protagonist is surprised, saying he saved a boundary ghost thinking it was a human. The boy's hand returns to normal, and Nosferatu tells him to prepare and flee. Now in a humble and small form, he tells the boy to run before he is discovered. Shanlan wonders who might be coming and looks back. Some monsters are gathered near the boy, lurking. They are feeding on the parts of humans who died on the battlefield. With hatred in his eyes, the protagonist looks at this and realizes they are eating his companions. Nosferatu has decided to rest in the boy's body until he regains his strength. He explains that now the two are one, and if they separate, both will die. Shanlan, in agony, thinks that now the king of demons is in his body, and despite hating to admit it, he is indeed feeling something strange in his chest. Angrily, he curses Nosferatu, who says he is not happy either, but there is no choice for them. The protagonist says he does not want to die yet, and that there are many things he still wants to do. Holding his weapon, Shanlan shouts that he will kill every monster, and Nosferatu says that is madness. The boy runs towards the monsters like a kamikaze while shouting with rage. He fires shots at the creatures, who notice his presence. In his chest, he feels a different sensation as if his heart has a life of its own. But he feels something very strange, as if the movements of the enemies are slowing down. One of the monsters tries to hit him with its claws, but he easily dodges. In fact, it is the protagonist who is moving faster. He channels his strength into his fists in an agile movement, and delivers a precise punch right to the monster's jaw, breaking its fangs. The force of the blow is so great that the creature flies a good distance away. Surprised, Shanlan compares the punch he threw to the sensation of touching a tomato. His heart is beating in a different and very strong way. He places his hand on his chest, puzzled by that sensation. But while he is lost in thought about his feelings, another monster does not waste time and approaches. The boy plants his feet on the ground, preparing for another counterattack. And with the same fist that defeated the first, he delivers another punch, this time to the creature's belly. And the result is similar. The force of the strike sends the enemy flying across the battlefield. The other monsters watching all of this appear to be worried. Looking at his fist, the protagonist believes he is stronger because he has united with Nosferatu. With all this power, he feels extremely confident and capable of anything. He runs fearlessly towards his adversaries. After a while, with the sun already setting, several defeated monsters can be seen, and Shanlan is sitting in the middle of the area. Nosferatu is surprised, saying that he really managed to defeat all the creatures. He has a very strong fighting spirit because he managed to stay conscious the whole time. The demon points at the protagonist and says he has the right to say his name. Serious, Shanlan stares at Nosferatu as if he owes him no obedience. Only a part of the demon can manifest, but he still controls his body. He begins to remember the terrible scenes he witnessed on the battlefield. Even though merging with a boundary ghost seems terrible, with this power he will be able to avenge all those who have gone. The boy looks into Nosferatu's eyes and says that his name is Xiao Shanlan. The demon says that this is an easy and short name to call a cattle, and he adds that from now on, he is counting on him. The protagonist is lying down, panting, and seems to be regaining his consciousness now. He is in a hospital bed and appears to be in pain. The cold light from the ceiling makes his newly opened eyes hurt a little. He tries to remember the last thing he can, and sees himself sitting on the battlefield. As he gets up, he wonders if all of this was just a dream. But before he can conclude his thoughts, Nosferatu appears beside him, and Lan convinces himself that it really wasn't a dream. We see the hospital of the 14th Battalion on the front line. It has many floors. Looking at the little demon, the boy asks him not to eat the flowers. The little devil replies that he is really not hungry, and that they don't even taste good. Screaming for him not to swallow the flowers, the protagonist gets startled. Nosferatu explains that they eat humans to survive, but he no longer feels the need. Lan responds that this is good because if he killed people to eat using his body, it would be disastrous. Envisioning this situation makes Nosferatu start laughing uncontrollably. While watching the demon laugh, the boy spots a water bottle nearby. He then realizes that he can see well even without his glasses. The protagonist leans over in bed to reach the bottle. He manages to grab it and holds it tightly. However, the bottle bursts as if it were made of an ultra-soft and sensitive material. Having gotten very wet, he takes off his hospital pajama shirt and begins to notice the changes that have occurred in his arms and body. Right after the fusion with Nosferatu, his body became stronger and his vision improved. The being with red hair watches the boy. Suddenly, a hand pulls the curtain that separates his bed from the others. It is Ba Mingri-xian, a nurse who came to visit patient Lan. She heard a loud noise and decided to come check. Lan hides his hand under the sheet. The boy greets her, hoping she hasn't noticed his hand. Getting very close to him, the nurse asks if he feels well or if he has any dizziness. He says he is fine, and she asks again because he spilled the water. Lan insists that he is fine, and the girl seems a bit dissatisfied. But upon realizing that he is okay, Xiang hugs him tenderly, saying she is very happy. She explains that he was found unconscious on the battlefield and slept for an entire day. With tears in her eyes, the girl looks at her childhood friend. Lan asks if the rescue team that came to save him found any other survivors, but his friend confirms that he was the only survivor found. The protagonist begins to remember that his companions were all devoured. With great sadness, he says he imagined that was the case. A heavy atmosphere of melancholy fills the hospital room. Xiang says she needs to call a doctor, but it's better for Lan to change first. Worried, he starts to stutter, imagining that she would see Nosferatu in his hand. He lifts the sheet but sees that his hand is normal, and there is nothing there. The nurse says he shouldn't be embarrassed, because even though she is a trainee, she is military, and saw everything when he was brought there. She has taken care of him since they were very young, and he says it's thanks to his uncles. Xiang comments that the boy has gotten quite strong in a very short time. Putting his hand on the back of his neck, embarrassed, he hopes she doesn't find out about his fusion. She adds that he gained a lot of muscle and has become an excellent soldier. But Lan says that doesn't mean anything because he couldn't save his companions. She comforts him by placing her hand under his, saying that even so, he proved to be very strong. They join their hands, and she confirms that this is something he should be proud of. Feeling more cheerful, the boy smiles and thanks his friend. Xiang smiles back, saying that psychological counseling is also part of her job. She gets up and goes to fetch some clothes for him to wear. Lan feels relieved and thinks about this feeling of being proud. Nosferatu appears, asking if that female is his partner, and the boy denies, embarrassed. The demon explains that he will be hiding and resting in his body until he regains his strength. Lan asks what will happen after he manages to recover. Nosferatu replies that he will eat him because humans are his food. The boy seems somewhat incredulous at the information, given the sincerity. Licking his lips, the little devil adds that he will eat him very carefully, not wasting anything. That guy is a boundary ghost, and not someone the protagonist can take seriously or trust. He will have to deal with the demon before he regains his strength. Outside the hospital, screams can be heard announcing that a new survivor has been found. It is Kazui Tekaharu, 18 years old, the best of all the recruits in training. He remembers when he lifted the protagonist with just one hand, threatening him. And that after that, his entire army was scattered until no one was left. He was leaning against the corner, trembling and having a panic attack. In great fear, he thought that everyone in his unit had been exterminated. And while he heard the sounds of battle, he couldn't even move. But he managed to see one of his comrades calling for him, underneath a truck. The boy was extremely injured but cried out for help. Kazui was paralyzed by witnessing that violent and shocking scene. Instead of helping his comrade, all he could do was run away. And he ran and ran, away from the attacks of the merciless monsters. Not caring about orders or comrades, he just wanted to save his own life. As tears streamed down his face, he said that everyone was his flesh shields. Now, exhausted, he was taken to the hospital as a survivor of the terrible battle. But a sinister energy lingered in the sky as if it were watching him. Back in the infirmary, we go to the protagonist's room. He asks Nosferatu if he can unite with other animals, but the little devil replies that he doesn't know, as he has never tried. And it was the first time a union with humans also worked. Worried, Lan asks if there was a chance it might not work, but he receives no answer, only a cynical silence. And Nosferatu starts laughing uncontrollably as if he had heard a joke. Lan hides his hand behind his body as two men enter the room. Kazui recognizes him and is absolutely shocked by what he sees. The protagonist seems very happy to see that the other boy also survived. He is left in the room too, in the bed next to the hero, and the guard leaves the area. Approaching his comrade, the boy says he thought there were no more survivors. But Kazui seems furious and asks why he is still alive. Clenching his teeth, he knows that no one can suspect that he ran away and asks if he saw anything. He repeats the question, talking about himself and the guys who were with him. However, the protagonist denies seeing anything. This leaves the boy relieved. Lan thinks he was worried about his comrades, and he asks the pompadoured boy why he cares about his comrades. But Kazui says the hero survived because he was lucky, as he was very weak. The protagonist agrees that he should have died on the battlefield. Something surprises Kazui greatly, and he looks in a certain direction, dumbfounded. He spots the doctor entering the room. She asks if he is the new survivor, and if he is feeling well. Kazui seems dazed and can barely answer the girl's questions. Lan explains to Asuka that this guy is from the same unit as him. The pompadoured boy is irritated about something and furrows his brow. And suddenly, out of nowhere, he attacks the girl's back. She is taken aback and somewhat unresponsive to such behavior. Kazui says he is a wounded person and needs care. Offended, Lan goes to him and pulls his hand away from his friend. Even more furious, the pompadoured boy tells the protagonist not to get cocky. But the hero begins to twist the other boy's hand slowly. He is surprised and wonders how this guy became so strong all of a sudden. A crack can be heard, and the rogue gets what he deserves. Kazui calls the protagonist a brat, and asks him to let go because he is hurting him. With a hostile expression, Lan tells him not to dare touch Asuka again. Asuka tries to calm the situation by stepping in and saying that everything is fine. But suddenly, Nosferatu manifests in the boy's hand and says that the enemy is coming. The girl finds the voice coming from nowhere strange and asks whose voice it was. Everything around them shakes like a high-magnitude earthquake. Everyone screams that an enemy attack is happening and that they are surrounded. The protagonist, Asuka, and Kazui leave the room and are met with chaos. The wall right in front of them explodes, sending debris and stones flying everywhere. From the hole that formed in the wall, a monster emerges. With its disgusting tongue sticking out, it stares at the three boys. Asuka is impressed by what she sees and is now paralyzed with fear. Lan positions himself in front, pushing the girl back and asking her to stay behind. Kazui calculates that there is only one enemy and they are three, but they are unarmed. And in an extremely cowardly move, he elbows Asuka towards the monster. Then he runs away, leaving the other two boys to deal with the enemy. The coward thinks that if he uses the girl as bait, the other boy will stay too, allowing him to escape. He believes he needs to survive, even if he is the last one left. The poor nurse falls to the ground and hurts her leg. Seeing her as defenseless bait, the monster approaches closer and closer. Nosferatu tells the protagonist to take the opportunity and escape while Asuka is used as bait. Lan is outraged, and the demon adds that he cannot show his powers there. The monster is mere centimeters away from devouring the poor girl on the ground. But before it can reach her, a powerful punch lands squarely on the skeletal face of the creature, sending it flying away and saving the poor damsel in distress. Asuka is impressed by such a display of power and is left speechless. The hero looks at her, asking if she is okay, while his fist still radiates power. Nosferatu in his hand judges the boy's actions, thinking he is an idiot. The monster is sent flying away by a powerful punch delivered by Lan. Incredulous, he looks at the result of his power and realizes he has indeed become stronger. He believes that with this power, he can save Asuka and everyone else. Asuka is still stunned, sitting on the ground, observing everything that happened. The hero turns to her and asks if she is okay. She responds with a trembling voice that she is. As she tries to get up, she thinks she twisted her ankle, and he will help her. He easily lifts her onto his back to carry her. His expression doesn't even change, as if he were holding something truly very light. The girl leans on him, realizing how strong he has become. The boy looks both ways down the hospital corridor, searching for something. He calls out for Kazui and wonders if he has somehow been knocked out. Nosferatu calls him an idiot, and says it's not the time to worry about those who aren't there. Again, the girl finds the voice coming from nowhere strange and asks what it is. But continuing to walk, the protagonist says it's nothing and that they should go. Lan decides to take Asuka to a safer place, and then look for weapons. Nosferatu seems bothered. He smells someone through the minions that appeared earlier. He believes that the usurper of the throne, the glutton demon Belusin, is after them. The boys reach the weapons depot of the place, but as they enter through the door, they are surprised by several weapons pointed at them. They are soldiers, nurses, and doctors hiding in that location. Asuka asks them to lower their weapons because they are on the same team. The relieved soldiers decide to lower their weapons and listen to the boys. Lan explains that the medical student is hurt and asks if they can take a look at her. The soldier says he received orders to protect the non-combatants there and asks where they are from. The protagonist salutes and introduces himself, asking him to lend him a weapon as well. Fortunately, there are still some leftover equipment, and the boy can prepare better. Nosferatu explains to AI that staying there would be a death sentence. The boy says he knows and that they need to make the enemy retreat. The little demon agrees and asks him to listen carefully to what he is going to say. He adds that he knows the location of the enemy leader, which surprises AI. If the heroes can defeat the leader, the henchmen will all retreat. Nosferatu says that the traitor who stole his throne is there, and that's why he told him. And in an explosion of rage, he says he needs to bury him with his own hands. AI feels that there seems to be a lot of resentment and negative feelings there. Since Nosferatu wants revenge and AI wants to protect the base, their goals are linked, and he prepares himself. With a mischievous look, the little demon asks if AI wants to protect that female. The boy becomes extremely flushed and says she is not just a female to him. A soldier notices that strange movement and says he will watch the entrance so he can rest. But AI positions himself confidently and determinedly between the soldiers, and says he will not rest but will face the enemy. The two soldiers are perplexed and say that this would be a suicide mission. But the determined protagonist asks everyone to protect the weapons and the non-combatants there. The boy's bravery leaves the soldiers even more impressed. They wonder where he came from and how he has so much courage. Before he could leave, Asuka shouts his name, asking him to wait a moment. But AI explains that staying there would be useless and that he wants to try to help in any way he can. Asuka asks if he is leaving her again, just like when he enlisted in the army. This sentence enters AI's heart in a profound way, and he begins to remember when he left his dear friend behind, deciding to enlist. She was crying and asking if he was really going to join the army instead of living a peaceful life with his family. He insists, saying he wants to help protect this place, even if it's just a little. The two friends hold hands, the girl trembling with sadness at seeing AI putting himself at risk. She says she understands but asks him to promise her absolutely. Back in the present day, the two are holding hands, just like in the past, and he again, with all his determination, says he needs to go. Asuka says he has changed a lot physically, but his stubbornness hasn't changed since he was young. She says with tears in her eyes yet smiling, that he must promise to come back alive. As he continues on his path, the protagonist looks back and nods. AI keeps running to complete his mission. He asks Nosferatu where exactly this leader he mentioned is. The little demon responds with the location but says that before that, and in the middle of the path, there wasn't a stone, but rather a monster eating a person. AI positions himself for battle, and the monster notices him too. He feels something different at the back of his neck. It is the anti-keiki equipment, more commonly known as boundary-breaking armament, a type of needle connected to his neck. The boy quickly charges toward his enemy without fear. It is equipment capable of granting powers far beyond normal strength and agility. He is already preparing to put his finger on the trigger of his weapon, and the true essence of these special armaments is not in the clothing but in the weapons, and another needle also pierces AI's finger. The weapons were designed to deal with invulnerable and stronger keiki. The protagonist positions his weapon in his arms and aims. To activate the special armaments, fresh red fluid with ANF is required. We see the boy's bloodstream being activated. Currently, only portable weapons have been developed. We have pistols, knives, and even sniper rifles. Even with some limitations, they are still powerful weapons. AI's fluids begin to activate his special weapon the moment the needle pierces him. Since keiki are not affected by existing bombs and missiles, AI starts shooting, and at the same moment, several holes appear in the monster's body. The power they unleash is still completely tremendous. With no chance to counterattack, the monster falls to its knees, looking like a Swiss cheese full of holes. Proudly, AI stands firm in front of the enemy he just defeated. Nosferatu thinks that humans use their powers to create these weapons, but more importantly, the boy truly possesses the power of a soldier. Without wasting time, AI asks the demon to take him quickly to where the enemy leader is. A wounded uniformed man is about to be devoured by a hungry keiki, but AI appears, unloading his bullets into the monster and saving the poor wounded soldier. The man who was saved can hardly believe he narrowly escaped being devoured. But with no time for conversation, the protagonist simply continues on his way without wanting any thanks. He is going to ask his guide Nosferatu if he is going the right way, but they end up arriving at another dead end since he doesn't know the area. Nosferatu warns that the leader is moving slowly to the east. AI asks if he can smell it, but he explains that it's more like an aura or intuition. The boy reaches a place that seems to have a map and begins to orient himself, and thanks to the warning from his personal demon, he manages to dodge a surprise attack from the enemy. Again, he unloads his bullets into the cowardly enemy attacking from behind. The monsters only attack with small fireballs when they are in enclosed spaces. At this moment, he is running low on bullets and needs to grab ammunition from his fallen comrades. Nosferatu doesn't understand why he apologizes, and he tries to explain a bit about respect for the dead. The demon takes the opportunity to share a curiosity that keiki only use small fireballs to eat the corpses afterward. While loading his weapon, AI becomes a bit thoughtful with this information, and the little demon continues saying that eating still living humans is more delicious. The protagonist calls him a monster, getting angry at the way he speaks. But with no time to lose, he continues on his path through the corridors of the base. In one of the corridors, a battle is happening between some monsters and the soldiers. The poor fighters are out of bullets and are hiding behind a barrier. Hungry keiki approach with eyes burning with rage and growling, but someone appears with impressive speed. AI maneuvers to pass by the soldiers and reach his enemies. He aims carefully to ensure he doesn't miss the target at all. In addition to greatly enhancing his physical abilities, he keeps shooting and preparing the trigger again. Agile, the keiki try, but they are no match for the hero's prepared body. AI's movements are exactly as described in the manual, and the keiki are once again riddled with holes thanks to the incredible protagonist. Unable to believe what their eyes see, the soldiers are left speechless. He manages to demonstrate great strength from serious training. In addition to using his firearm, the boy also employs his knife to defeat the creatures. He begins to review the techniques he read in his manual, such as wall running and knife usage, and the soldiers cannot believe it. AI salutes while looking at his battle comrade and introduces himself as AI Shinigami. His comrades still want to understand how he achieved all this. Proudly, he responds that it is the result of his basic training. But the men are not convinced that this is taught in basic training. The results of AI's battle against the monsters are very favorable. The lieutenant with a scar on his face congratulates Shinigami. He shows the boy a radar that locates enemies and says they need to make them retreat. With determination in his eyes, the protagonist replies affirmatively. Due to radio interference, the enemy's combat strength cannot be recognized. Although he knows the leader's location, AI needs to convey this without sounding suspicious. He explains that he escaped from Building C and believes the enemies are concentrated in Building B. Touching the radar, he points out the location where he thinks his opponents might be. The lieutenant is a bit confused, but the soldier warns that it is dangerous to stay there, and they need to move. The scarred man says he trusts AI and asks if he can guide them. He confirms, as he has valuable information thanks to Nosferatu. Optimistically, the man shouts to his soldiers that they will defeat the enemy leader and drive them out of the base. Even the already injured men respond affirmatively. Continuing his orders, the lieutenant says that anyone who does not follow the navigator AI will have to deal with him. With fire in their eyes, the soldiers shout in confirmation of the orders, showing their morale. Shinagami is excited by such perseverance and feels proud of the soldiers. Orders are given to begin the march to the leader's location. The monster is hit by several bullets that pierce its body. Leading the other soldiers, our protagonist moves forward, hitting his targets. 2 more monsters appear ahead, trying to impede their progress. They launch their explosive fireballs toward the armed soldiers. The hero advances, and the frightened soldiers plead for him not to run ahead. But the protagonist is not an ordinary soldier, and can see more clearly what needs to be done. He easily dodges the explosive fireballs by crouching on the ground. The boy manages to slice them in half with his knife without injuring himself. Moreover, he dives into the explosion but suffers no damage at all. Thus, he continues his assault with all his extraordinary speed. The lieutenant is astonished as the boy used the explosion of the fireballs to accelerate himself. And with his simple knife, he easily cuts the monster. Continuing to attack with his knife, he realizes that with the extra powers, it becomes much sharper. One of the remaining monsters attempts to counterattack with a blow from its arm. But AI anticipates the movements and blocks the strike with his foot. The kick was so strong that it ended up fracturing the monster's bone. The soldiers are impressed as the Keiki's strong arm was broken in an instant. AI is determined to attack with the knife as much as possible to conserve ammunition. And in a swift charge, he manages to finish off the monster with the broken arm. He ends the strike with a heroic pose as the pieces of his enemy fly through the air. The boy feels proud to have dealt with the enemy using only his knife. His battle companions are left speechless by such skill. The lieutenant asks a soldier if he can do what AI does, but he replies that it is impossible. But he regains his composure and tells everyone to stop daydreaming because they need to support the rookie. They affirm and continue running to cover AI, who is at the front of the battalion. All the soldiers shower our protagonist with compliments, making him feel a bit embarrassed. Modestly, he says he still has a long way to go. Nosferatu does not seem very excited and annoyed, thinks the protagonist is an idiot. But as the battalion continues on its path, an intense explosion breaks the wall behind them. A gigantic monster manages to catch the lieutenant with its enormous claws. AI looks back and is surprised, calling for his superior. The monster that grabbed the lieutenant is gigantic and very muscular. It brings its massive jaws close to the head of the injured soldier, and without mercy, it bites the man's head right in front of his comrades. The soldiers, feeling desperate, unload their ammunition into the bastard monster. But impressively, they fail to pierce the creature's tough skin. AI is suspicious that this monster might be the leader of them all. Keiki raises his arm, and one can see the tiny holes from the bullets that cause little damage. He approaches a poor soldier who ends up being caught off guard, and with tremendous strength, he slams the poor guy against the wall with a swipe. The creature's eyes shine in a scarlet color as it approaches the rest of the battalion. Shinagami grits his teeth in despair, unsure how to proceed from there. He shouts for the soldiers to shoot while the monster throws soldiers against the walls. Keiki defends himself from all the shots with his own arm, showcasing his immunity to bullets. The projectiles can't even pierce his skin, which seems as hard as steel. And from the spots where the bullets entered, a kind of neon blue liquid oozes out. This liquid hardens and forms spikes that grow towards the soldiers, impaling them. The poor men suffer fatal injuries from the hardened blue fluid of the monster. AI is stunned by this new attack, the fluid transforming into spikes. Nosferatu wonders if this monster is the commander, but apparently it is not. Although they seem similar, that specific guy did not come. That guy is an evolved minion who received extra powers. The demon warns AI that the bullets won't take down the creature, and that a point-blank shot is impossible. Nosferatu jokes about miso flavor and miso soup. He adds that the boy should use some meat shields. The corpses on the ground can be used as shields to get closer to Keiki. Shinagami is not on board with the idea, believing it absurd to fight this way. He is apprehensive, and the battle has reached a very critical point. The protagonist decides to charge by maneuvering along the wall, running on it. The soldiers plead with him not to go, as it would be a futile effort. But the determined hero continues his charge with great agility. The monster notices his approach and begins to prepare a powerful punch. But Shinagami also prepares a counterattack to defend himself. And with both arms, he holds the punch of the gigantic creature, causing the ground to sink. The blow is so heavy that it makes the boy's arms tremble, but he manages to hold on. His battle companions are impressed by such a display of strength. The blue fluid from the creature begins to flow from the bullet holes, about to harden. But AI seems to be waiting for this, and as soon as the spikes harden and emerge, he performs a jump at the perfect moment to dodge the spikes and land on the ceiling. The men watching are shocked by his agility. When the monster transforms its fluid into spikes, it becomes rigid, giving the perfect opportunity for the hero to reposition himself and launch an attack. He drives his dagger into the beast's skull with all his strength in a final blow. But what was thought to be a success was not so good, as the spikes pierced the boy. Suffering from the pain of the punctures, he still holds the dagger firmly in his hand. And the persistent Keiki has not yet given up, his head shaking with the dagger. Shinigami brings his two hands together on the weapon to continue the piercing with more firmness. And with hatred in his eyes, he forces deeper to finally finish off his opponent. The dagger cuts through the creature's skull, spreading blue fluid everywhere. But the brave protagonist falls off the monster, his body already limp. He hits the ground hard, apparently unconscious. Both combatants are unconscious and on the ground after an epic battle. Nosferatu asks why he dealt with all of this alone. And the boy replies that if he had tried, perhaps the others could survive. Despite calling him an idiot, the demon congratulates AI for defeating his enemy. The boy laughs, all injured, yet proud of what he has accomplished. Even though they defeated Keiki, he feels that this is the limit of what he can do. Debris begins to fall, and there is a lot of noise. However, the next day, the beautiful medical student says the protagonist's name with great tenderness. He is lying on her lap, and she is very grateful that he is alive. The protagonist seems very impressed to be alive. He places his hand on his face. Nosferatu, with a mischievous smile, responds that no. And you can see his true form, saying that he reached phase 2 and then became stronger. Now lying in a hospital bed, Shinigami is being cared for by Asuka. She measures his temperature with a thermometer, and it is quite high. She asks him to rest. Despite trembling, the boy sits up in bed, saying it's just a small injury. Upset, he remembers that the lieutenant was killed right before his eyes. The image of the monster biting the man's head comes back to his mind. He tries to insist that he must honor the death of his comrades, but the doctor asks him to sleep. Worried, she adjusts the medication so he can rest better. As soon as he calms down, the girl leaves the recovery base. AI is quite disappointed. He places his hand under his face lamenting what happened. As soon as the commander of the Keiki was defeated, the morale of the monsters collapsed, and in retreat, they all left the base. Despite this, the building was quite damaged from all the battles that occurred there. Thanks to AI's efforts, the enemies were repelled, but the damage to the base is inevitable. Meanwhile, the medical posts are ready, and inside one of them, our protagonist rests, wondering why he is alive again. Nosferatu explains that he inherited his powers, a Keiki king, the power of the immortal ghost. This literally means that the boy will not die. Shinigami seems quite confused by what he just heard. The demon continues explaining that besides reviving, the level of Keiki's power has increased. Within his bloodstream, it is possible to see some strange elements increasing. And indeed, his physical abilities have improved. For example, he no longer even needs glasses. He is impressed. In other words, the more the boy dies, the stronger he will become. Laughing, Nosferatu jokes that even being a cattle, AI has a lot of strength and owes it to him. He realizes that he hasn't become stronger as he thought, but rather transformed into a Keiki. Reaching this conclusion, he feels quite upset. But something makes him think, and he looks at his own hand. He thinks with confidence and determination that this doesn't matter. Not letting himself be shaken, no matter how many times he dies, he will come back and protect everyone from the Keiki. Nosferatu, proud, says that this is what he expected from someone who killed that guy's minions. And the memory of Shinigami delivering the final blow to the leader of the monsters comes to mind. AI compares the strength of the leader of the monsters with Nosferatu, and he explains that he is of nobility, which is why he is much stronger. Shooting stars fall from a clear, starry sky towards the earth. The demon explains that from the many seeds that fell to the ground, there are some kings. And he is the one who rules among the kings of the seeds, the king of kings, the third generation. AI asks if he has the ability to speak precisely because he is a king. He confirms and says that his ancestors ate the creatures and understood the planet's ecosystem. And then they began to evolve to try to replace humans and dominate this planet. Shinigami asks about who betrayed him, and he says it was a common soldier who achieved an extraordinary evolution. We see a sinister shadow rising from the ground illustrating this individual who was responsible for the betrayal. Each real being possesses a skill, such as Nosferatu's immortality, but even being common, that guy had abilities. Worried, AI wants to know more about these abilities, but the demon gives him a cynical look and pauses. Gluttony. That is the ability. The guy can completely absorb others. A terrifying smiling shadow is absorbing a Keiki. He is called Gluttonous Demon. Now with 3 heads and an absurd size, he has eaten other reals and gained intelligence, naming himself Belusin. And Shinigami says that, by the way, he had mentioned that his name was Undying Phantom. But Nosferatu says that as cattle, he must show respect and not keep saying his name like that. To provoke the boy, he says that from now on he will call him Nos. The demon gets furious and says that he should not dare to create a nickname for the king of the Keiki. And with disdain, the boy replies that it's the same as calling him AI, like cattle. so he decides that he will also deal with the name of his demon in this way. Nosferatu gets even angrier, saying that he should not be compared to cattle in any way. The protagonist leans back on the bed and says that he does not have the right to say that. Giving up, the demon says that it is useless to try to be rational with cattle, and smiling, he asks AI to give his all to complete his revenge. Smiling back, the boy says that then Nos must lend him all the strength possible. The two partners face each other, both determined with similar yet different objectives. We can see a soldier training field with several military vehicles. It is the 7th forward base of Yabanai, and there are several people walking around. Having recovered, our protagonist is standing and observing everything. A week has passed since the destruction of the 14th forward base. Asuka waves to the boy to greet him. Some men nearby think she is waving at them, but she has eyes only for Shinagami. The two have been transferred to the Yabanai base, in the infantry battalion, when a man with spiky dark hair approaches AI and calls him. He responds respectfully and cheerfully, calling him senpai. They both have memories of past battles together. Happy to see his friend there as well, the senpai thanks AI for helping him at the 14th base. He places a hand on his friend's shoulder, saying it was thanks to him that he survived. But melancholic, the boy explains that he couldn't save the lieutenant, and the terrible memories of the monster devouring his head return to his mind. However, the senpai insists that the lieutenant did this with honor and fought bravely until the last moment. To add, he says that if AI feels guilty for the lieutenant's death, it would be an insult to him. These words make a lot of sense to the protagonist, and he apologizes for that. The protagonist's friend says he will honor the second chance he had thanks to AI's rescue. Smiling, Shinagami agrees, happy to have saved someone important. The two say goodbye after a conversation and hope to meet again on the battlefield. But AI becomes a bit serious and thoughtful after parting from his friend. He looks to the horizon with a gaze full of motivation, the next battlefield. Looking at the blue sky, he wonders what his next battles will be like. In Region 7, a city reclamation operation is underway. Soldiers are shooting at gigantic monsters that are destroying the surroundings. The monster is defending itself from the shots with its arm, repelling them all. And while defending, it delivers blows that throw the men away. AI's senpai is in this operation and is surprised that there was such a strong monster in the end. With its armored arm, the creature can repel any attempt to injure it, and this makes him angry. He looks at his adversaries with hatred. The poor shooter has run out of bullets, and his opponent roars with rage. With a quick lunge, the horrifying monster manages to grab the boy's body. Someone appears, approaching the clash with swift steps. The keiki is on the verge of biting off the poor boy's head, but our protagonist appears with his dagger in both hands, ready for an attack. And in a single strike, he manages to tear the monster's body from head to legs. Caught by surprise, the creature screams in despair. It turns to see who attacked it and faces our hero. However, AI does not let it move and attacks with a direct blow to its left eye. The dagger is plunged into the creature's eyeball, causing it to lose balance and fall. The monster collapses unconscious, and our hero pulls the dagger out of it. Victorious, he calls for his senpai to check if he is okay. Shinagami approaches the injured man and realizes that the wound is not deep and reinforcements will be there soon. The senpai laughs, realizing that the boy saved his life again. But suddenly, Nosferatu screams that he sensed an aura that is about to self-destruct. AI looks back at the corpse of the monster he just defeated, and something strange is indeed happening. Different noises start coming from it. A huge explosion engulfs the area, with flames and smoke rising as the boys take cover. The explosion can be seen from afar in the city, a deafening and terrible noise. As night falls, we can see some walls of the city destroyed. The scene is post-apocalyptic, with cars and buildings wrecked everywhere. A gigantic crater can be seen in the middle of what remains of the city streets. A piece of the lower part of a body lies fallen, with several parts separated. But the sun does not wait to rise, and a new day emerges on the horizon. A soldier in armor asks if the person is okay. Shinagami is lying on the ground. His clothes are very torn, but he is intact. He sits up, placing a hand on his head, asking where his senpai and the others are. The soldier sadly says that he is the only survivor found. Astonished, the boy cannot believe what he has heard. Unable to contain his emotions, he puts his hands on his face and starts to cry. Clenching his fists, he cannot believe that he is once again the only survivor. But sitting and thoughtful, he promises that next time he will act differently. Back at the base, a helicopter approaches with a box attached. The protagonist gets out of the military truck, his clothing still completely torn. Disappointed, he says he needs to report an incident. Everyone around is surprised that he survived and comments among themselves. They start saying he looks like a reaper since everyone around him is eliminated except for him. But he ends up overhearing this conversation about his new nickname. The gossiping soldiers pretend they are not talking about him, but what he heard enters his heart, and he feels hurt. Despite being offensive, he believes this nickname suits him. but he decides to kill all the keiki. So he decides to adopt the nickname, and says that now he will be the Reaper. Many explosive fireballs fly across the battlefield. They are dead. All of them are dead, Shinagami is thinking, standing in the middle of the place without one of his arms and badly injured. In front of his eyes, a monster devours the head of a soldier. He shoots into the air where some flying monsters dismember another ally. Murdered, they were murdered. With a look of hatred, the boy sinks his dagger into the chest of a keiki, eliminating it. Surviving, reviving, but he is the only one who survived, and he couldn't protect everyone. Now he is using a sword to rip the head off a monster. Shinagami AI was transferred to the 7th base 10 days ago, breaking his dagger with the force of the blow on the body of another keiki. The protagonist is furious. Shinagami AI's unit suffered total annihilation. He is the only one left standing, surrounded by corpses of humans and monsters everywhere. There are already more than 5 units and over 30 fallen members. And back at the Yabanai base, we can see the entrance of the place. With a dead look, the protagonist walks through the corridors of the place, being watched by others. The men comment that he is there, and has a very strong presence. Everyone has now adopted the nickname for him, AI the Reaper. Meanwhile, in a dark corridor with some doors, there were only a few survivors from the invasion of Base 14, Kazui Tekaharu, who also went to the 7th base. We see an interrogation room. He is being interrogated on suspicion of desertion in the face of the enemy. The girl with a serious expression is named Asakawa Melissa and asks if he has any objections. The man bangs on the table angrily, saying that this was fabricated and he did nothing. Melissa confirms that there are witnesses that he abandoned his companions and fled. Furious, she asks if it is true that he used a medical student as bait. Kazui starts to stutter, and says that it wasn't like that. He explains that he wanted to help his companions, but he needed to go after weapons. Continuing to explain, he says that there were many non-combatants at the location, and he was going to protect them. The girl counters, saying that except for him, all the others died. This information surprises the pompadoured man, who ends up speechless. Melissa asks him to tell the truth and admit that he used the non-combatants as bait to escape. A memory of Kazui running while the keiki rips the head off a soldier comes to mind. The blonde remembers that he was also attacked during the transport, and did the same thing. He fled. Sweating, the man begins to remember the companion he left to die crushed by the vehicle. Melissa loses her patience and shouts for him to stop lying, or she will use him to feed the keiki. This firm and frightening stance leaves the pompadoured man meek and speechless. To appease him, she says that others would say that, but she wouldn't, and that she believes him. Since they were only verbal witnesses and there is no evidence, they cannot accuse him directly. Kazui breathes a sigh of relief and thinks that the girl scared him a lot. Taking a tablet, the girl congratulates him for joining the 32nd squad and reuniting with him. Confused, he asks who this person is. Melissa explains that they were classmates in training school, during transport, and at base 14. And this person is the Reaper. But before finishing, she corrects herself. It is Shinagami AI. Now only the woman and another man in white are in the interrogation room. She asks if everything is okay for Division General Sakurai. The man's name is Sakurai Ayato, and he finds both Kazui and Shinagami somewhat suspicious. Melissa points out that only the two always survive and questions whether he could be a deserter. Sakurai smiles and says that could indeed be the case. But that is not the point. He is really interested in learning more about the Reaper. With his head down, Kazui walks through the corridors of the base, thinking about Shinagami. He comes to the conclusion that it might have been AI who reported his escape that day. And as a twist of fate, the two boys bump into each other on the way. Kazui falls to the ground and says that it hurt, telling him to be more careful. Shinagami has an indifferent expression and stares at the boy lying on the ground. But now that Kazui realizes who bumped into him, he becomes frightened. Still maintaining the same expression, the protagonist notices that Kazui is still alive. The furious boy grabs him by the shirt and asks if he knows everything he has gone through because of him. And still with a completely apathetic face, AI says that he will die too. With those words, Kazui realizes how the boy's aura has changed and that he is no longer the same weakling as before. On the other hand, the protagonist hopes that at least Kazui can survive. Their conversation is interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Asuka, who asks what AI is doing. Again at the Yabanai base, in the arsenal of the frontline base. Some soldiers are carefully maintaining the place. In the armament preparation room of Limit Break, some scientists are working. Hanamori, the head of armaments and second lieutenant, says that the blade breaks easily. Shinagami agrees and asks if there is any weapon that can replace the bayonet. She asks what he thinks about using a rifle. Scratching his neck, he says that they always end up running out of ammunition every time. Furious, the girl asks if this problem shouldn't be solved by his infantry. Despite being short, the girl is quite intimidating. For her, it is very unusual to see blade bearers fighting against the keiki. but she acknowledges that the protagonist has already eliminated several with just a knife and praises him. He awkwardly thanks her, and she says she has something good for him. The little girl jumps off the bench, revealing her true height, which doesn't reach AI's chest. Searching through her supplies, she tosses some things aside until she finds what she wanted. She shows him a type of mace that is a prototype but looks powerful. Surprised, AI asks if that is a spiked club. Hanamori explains that it may not look like it, but it is as good as a blade. The boy starts testing the movements with the club, and she says that he will be able to kill the monsters just with the strength of his arm. He remembers when he attacked a keiki with the strength of his arm, and with that memory, he agrees that this weapon could be wonderful. Convinced, Hanamori says that this is her special creation, but something different catches Shinagami's attention. The word Kyuden is engraved on the weapon's handle, and he feels a bit confused. The girl asks if that guy said the same thing to him. He asks who exactly, and she says she is talking about Kyuden Ryusei. The mysterious man is known as the strongest human soldier of all. AI is surprised by this new information. Outside the base, on a sunny day, a man walks around the area. It is Shinagami AI, who is walking with his backpack on his back. He remembers what Nosferatu said about Phase 2, where he would become stronger. When he looks at his hand, he realizes that the little devil has fallen asleep. AI gets stronger every time he dies, but he explains to the others that it is thanks to his suit. But the most noticeable thing is his aura. Now he can understand what a keiki's aura is. Yet he still couldn't protect all his teammates. He feels as if several skeletons are buried beneath his feet. A different voice asks if it can bother him for a moment. This person is Sakurai, who greets the boy with a friendly smile. But his shiny shoulder pad demonstrates how important he is. This makes AI feel a bit awkward, and he introduces himself with a salute. Sakurai asks him to calm down, and mentions that he has heard about him and his units that were completely wiped out. These rumors that reach the division general leave AI somewhat upset. The superior adds that still, all missions are completed. This sounds like a compliment to Shinagami, who is a bit surprised. He cites as an example using the truck as bait during transport, protecting it until the end. Sakurai says that if he were to list AI's achievements, it would never end, and asks him not to let the rumors affect him. For him, despite the casualties, completing his mission proves that he honored the sacrifices of his comrades. These words touch the boy's heart, who seems to have had his morale lifted. And to top it off, the general says he is looking forward to seeing his next performances. He congratulates him, and says that AI has now been promoted since 100% of his missions have been completed. With a determined look, the man says that he has earned his respect as a soldier. Shinagami is astonished by so many compliments coming from such an important person. The man bids farewell, and once again the boy salutes in respect. He can hardly contain his emotions. His eyes well up with happiness, and he watches the important man walking away in the distance. But the mischievous Sakurai is planning to put Kazui and AI together since both have achieved 100% of their missions. A large group of war tanks moves through the area. Their powerful machinery makes a lot of noise, and the ground shakes. It is the armored personnel carrier number 8 with the 32nd squad on board. Kondo, the squad leader, warns that radio waves are being intercepted. He asks if everyone there remembers the large-scale operation they conducted 6 months ago. This time they will embark on a quick attack. AI watches as the leader gives the orders for continuous covering fire after the attack. Kazui is also deep in thought, looking at his colleague. The leader asks them to remember to reload whenever they pass cover. Everyone, including AI, agrees and follows the orders and advice of the chief. Kazui cannot take his eyes off 2 other soldiers who are there. He has the strange feeling that he has seen those guys somewhere else. One of them is new, 27 years old, and the best keiki killer from the 7th base. The other is Tachikawa, also 27 years old, and the second best keiki killer. Kazui is impressed because everyone summoned there is the best of the best. He decides to introduce himself to the 2, emphasizing that he has heard of their heroic deeds. But Nu completely ignores the pompadoured one and greets Shinagami. The protagonist is surprised by the boy's approach. Nu talks to Tachikawa and says he suspected it was really AI there. Tachikawa seems to be a man of few words and says he is looking forward to working with him. Kondo interrupts the soldier's conversation and says he has heard about the Reaper's feats. The brown-haired boy reinforces that everyone is counting on the super rookie, and the quiet Tachikawa also adds that they will all be following his lead. This scene leaves Kazui on edge because AI has been recognized by the best. With determination, the hero says he will lead and that they can count on him. Kazui cannot ignore that AI's aura is quite different. It's as if he really is another person. He doesn't want to believe that the loser who was the worst in the class has now become this. From the opening of the vehicle, the boy can see something unusual. On a keiki corpse, something resembling a tree is sprouting. The pompadoured one is impressed by that scene and wonders what it could be. The military tanks approach a field where there are several craters. Kondo gives orders for them to get out of their positions and start the fight. Taking their positions, the men begin to exit the tanks. Near the human containment zone of the 7th district, the troops advance. But flying over the area, several flying monsters can be seen preparing to attack. Land monsters also begin to howl and roar, preparing for the charge. And like a furious herd, they come together to head towards the soldiers. It is a meeting of two battle forces in a desolate field. Thanks to the radio silencer, the humans manage to escape early detection. A wave of missiles surges from above them towards the monsters. It is the covering fire from the armored vehicles supporting the troop. But the only thing truly effective against Keiki are the limit-breaking weapons. The missiles are faster than AI and pass him in the race to the enemies. In the past, huge rockets complemented the missiles and stole the show. For the Keiki, they were just a slight discouragement and rained down from the sky. But something on the soldiers' backs begins to make a different noise. And suddenly, transparent shields appear around each of their bodies. The missiles and rockets explode in the sky, making noises that resemble fireworks. For their part, the Keiki prepare their fireballs to attack their combatants. Based on past experiences, the explosive fireballs from the Keiki explode on contact with any object. One of them launches an explosive fireball forward, and this causes the fireball to explode directly near him. All the monsters that launch their fireballs end up receiving explosions near them. The purpose of the rain of bullets is to disperse small stones in the air and block the Keiki's fireballs, and the soldiers are not affected by them. One of the men shouts to load the next attacks, and in unison, the soldiers shout as they prepare. Despite the coordinated missile strike, the Keiki continue their assault. AI realizes that, just as the instructions said, they are switching to close combat. The hero draws his newest special weapon and charges into battle. Pressing the needle on its handle, the weapon begins to glow blue. One of the Keiki approaches, in a defensive stance with its arms covering its face. Shinagami leaps high towards the enemy, charging his attack. With a scream and hatred in his eyes, he prepares to deliver the blow. The mace strikes the monster's hands, which were protecting its head. AI steps back as soon as the strike is finished, and an explosion hits the Keiki. With one of his arms, he then raises his firearm, and he fires several shots at another monster to finish it off for good. His transparent shield is still active, and he lands on the ground after his attacks. So his results already count 2 Keiki defeated. The fireballs from the Keiki have sealed them. They need to reduce the number of monsters before the shield dissipates. But something strange catches our hero's attention. As the monsters approach, he notices a different sound. And after that sound, all the monsters begin to run towards their enemy. AI notices the sound, but he knows he doesn't have time to think about it now. He looks back and calls for the squad leader. Kondo is busy leading the troops to organize them into firing formations. The soldiers obey and begin to shoot insistently at the enemies. Some of them are hit by the gunfire and are taken down at that moment. But another one manages to advance enough and bites one of the soldiers on the shoulder. Unfortunately, many Keiki have already reached the soldiers' line and begin to attack them. Realizing this, the hero can't help but let out a scream, and he charges unstoppable towards the monsters, striking them with his mace. His powerful blows manage to crush some creatures on the battlefield. He alternates between mace strikes with his right arm and shots with his left arm, and as soon as the ammunition runs out, he skillfully manages to change the weapon's cartridge, leaving the rest of his squad behind and pieces of the creatures on the ground. Kondo gives the orders for his squad to follow Shinagami and continue the attacks, and they form a line right behind the hero, who keeps smashing his enemies. AI is determined to save everyone in the containment zone, no matter what. The 7th district has been taken over by Keiki, becoming a realm of darkness where countless humans remain imprisoned. They fear becoming the next meal while being forced to live like cattle. The objective of this operation is to eliminate the enemy's containment zone and rescue the people. The battles along the way have finally paved a path towards the goal. The hero continues following his battle techniques, alternating between strikes and shots. Everyone knows that most of the good battle results are thanks to the Reaper. Noticing something different in the sky, Shinagami pauses his attacks. Now they have only 5 minutes before the shield disappears. AI advances, trying to defeat as many enemies as he can. Every step counts. He approaches a gigantic herd of enemies that are in the majority. Nosferatu explains that he can revive but needs to wait some time and avoid contact with seawater. AI finds this last point curious but asks what the third condition is. The last thing is that he needs to protect his heart from being consumed by another Keiki. The boy asks what happens if his heart is eaten. Nosferatu tells him that resurrection will become impossible, and furthermore, his ability will be completely taken over by another, so he must be careful where he dies. Thinking about this information, the boy continues his attack, but he knows that if he dies there, the creatures will devour him, and he won't come back to life. He grips his mace tightly, considering all the consequences and risks. Shinagami believes that this is not a reason to refrain from attacking and continues smashing the enemies. Practically surrounded, the boy observes his hungry and furious attackers. But after killing one keiki, the others seem a bit apprehensive. The protagonist has a frightening expression, and his aura is ominous. A bright yellow line cuts through, only 3 minutes left. He reloads his weapon, still thoughtful as the cartridge falls. But as soon as the cartridge hits the ground, he takes his step. Screaming with rage, he declares that if the creatures don't come to him, he will go to them. The keiki revolt and scream back at the protagonist in fury. In a deadly rush, the combatants are about to meet. AI leaps to attempt a semi-aerial attack on a keiki, and again he hears the noise that had caught his attention. But that doesn't stop him from annihilating the 2 enemies in front of him. Other keiki begin to charge their explosive fireballs. Shinagami notices this. Seeing that the troop is getting too close, he asks them to stop. More keiki start charging their explosive powers with their hands. Preparing for the next attack with his club, he witnesses some explosions that are negated by the shield. The shield has not yet dissipated and the monsters are already attacking. Filled with craters, the battlefield is boiling with this tense clash. Nosferatu asks if the boy is okay because there is a lot of communication noise around. Shinagami says that the demon should have warned him earlier that sound was a form of communication. But the little devil says that without the gluttonous demon on the battlefield, he will not help him. The opponent's fireballs are approaching and AI's shield is still intact. He decides to charge forward and advances towards the attacks without any fear. As a strategy, he also uses some shots from his weapon to explode the fireballs. And with all his courage and determination, he says he will sweep them away from there. Amidst all the war raging in the area, we see an individual fleeing. It could only be Kazui, the coward of the battalion sneaking through the trenches. As soon as the covering fire stopped, the enemy's fireballs descended rapidly. Explosions can be heard and people flying in all directions. The battlefield is chaos. Kazui doesn't understand why he has to crawl and fight on this cursed front line. He decides he will stay hidden until everything is resolved and see how it ends. Tired from running, he leans against the wall with his hand. But he is surprised by a voice asking if he is also taking a break. Looking to the side, he can see 2 figures of individuals there. One of the soldiers asks what the advantage is of being assault infantry if they still have to run to battle. The man disagrees with the type of strategy his troop has set up and decides to stay there waiting. Kazui thinks the 2 are idiots, that vehicles would only serve as another target, and that without cover they wouldn't have made it this far. From the trench, the orders of the leader can be heard, and the 2 still mockingly doubt them. The man says that Kazui is as smart as they are because that place is a great hiding spot. Laughing, the cocky one says he has no idea where those guys came from. But he gets furious and tells them not to compare him with people like them. This irritates the soldier, who stares at the boy and asks what he said. Kazui explains that he is hiding there just to observe, but that his skills are enough to survive. The 2 men look at each other somewhat confused, and they start to laugh mockingly, asking him to demonstrate his skills on the battlefield. With nerves on edge, the cocky one says he already mentioned he is observing now. Now serious and with a firm expression, the soldier asks Kazui to pay attention to him. He points over the trench and says that guy is someone who can survive with his skills. And the man they are pointing at stands firm and tall on the battlefield holding his club. After a few minutes in battle, AI, who is on the front line, begins to show signs of fatigue. He defends himself from the monster's attacks with his powerful club. Even with his reinforced body, he couldn't use it effectively. Thinking that this way they will end up dying there, he thinks he will have no choices. Nosferatu thinks there have been too many senseless actions, and that he has no sense at all. AI gets angry at this observation from his body partner. The demon says he shouldn't rely only on sight but should use his other senses to perceive the aura. Confused, Shinagami repeats the word aura trying to understand what it is. He then closes his eyes and begins to concentrate deeply around him. And as if it were a sixth sense, he starts to perceive the monsters all around him. And trusting his new intuition, he prepares a targeted attack. This attack is extremely successful as it hits 2 keiki in one shot. Surprised, the boy realizes he is able to feel and predict the movements of his enemies. Nosferatu says that humans rely too much on their sight but need to sharpen their other senses. AI doesn't understand why he is suddenly giving tips, but asks why this is so impressive. The demon tells him to stop talking and just do it if he really intends to win. The hero prepares his club and says he will start acting now. He sharpens his perception and begins to see the movements of the keiki in advance. With this, he manages to land precise blows on his enemies before they can attack. This new ability allows for greater accuracy in his strikes and higher hit rates. If he can sense the movements of the enemies, he can attack 2 or even more times. Nosferatu asks if his legs are only good for kicking, because he could use them better in his attacks. Following this advice, the boy manages to make a different jump and attack one of the monsters. He combines a strike with the club with a precise kick to another opponent's face. Noticing that his success has greatly improved, he realizes that this technique is very similar to the movements that the keikis perform. In an unusual move, he holds his weapon with his mouth and begins to attack with his arms. With this, he manages to hit an incredible variety of enemies at once. The monsters fly through the air defeated, and the boy doesn't take a scratch. Despite being tired, such skill leaves the protagonist very excited. Nosferatu smiles and approves, saying that the boy has succeeded. From the back, inside the trench, a curious little head appears. It's Kuzui, who is surprised watching all of the protagonist's movements. The scene makes him believe that his colleague is a monster, and that he has indeed fallen behind. Kuzui is leaning against the wall of the trench wondering if he really lost to the Shinigami. The soldiers notice his expression and say that ordinary people like them don't help. The pompadoured boy clenches his fists tightly in anger, cursing the situation. He shouts that he can't believe he is weaker than the Shinigami, and that he can't accept it. One of the soldiers is somewhat confused by the boy's reaction. Kuzui, enraged, grabs his weapon and points it at the two soldiers with a sinister expression. The man asks what he is doing and says that this is not a game. Angrily, the pompadoured boy says he is warning them that this hideout is a dead end. While one of the soldiers tries to reason with the angry boy, the other is trembling and calls them. When the man who was arguing looks back, he is taken by surprise. A group of keikis is watching the three and begins to approach. The soldier runs to grab his weapon, terrified. But the monsters are much faster and manage to crush their heads before they can react. Kuzui acts quickly and starts shooting at the beasts before they get any closer. However, he realizes that all this effort may not be enough. He says he will not die in this hole and that he still has many things he wants to achieve. Turning to the battlefield, he says he will make good use of the Shinigami. The squad is getting closer and closer to the besieged city, and the monsters attack. Nu is shooting with two weapons, one in each hand, and says that Shinigami has advanced too far. The squad leader calls all the soldiers, asking them to reach the protagonist and defend him. All the soldiers obey firmly, shouting in affirmation. They can even see AI ahead, but he is indeed very far away. The boy is completely surrounded by creatures trying to devour him. The situation is worse than Nosferatu thought, as AI focuses only on pulling everything to himself. And once again, the protagonist runs out of ammunition in his weapon. He holds the club with both hands, even more out of breath and tired than before. The monsters take advantage of this opening to get even closer to him, and with an extraordinarily athletic move, the boy manages to hit a monster behind him. He notices that the claw of another keiki is very close to his head, and he uses the shaft of the club to protect himself from the impending attack. But the force of the creature's attack is great, and he is launched upwards with all his might. He soars over several monsters that watch the opponent floating. Furious, he lets out a scream with all the strength of his lungs. Taking advantage of the momentum he gained, he lands on the ground already delivering a blow to another keiki. But unfortunately, while falling, he cannot dodge the attacks and gets scratched. The enemies do not relent and do not wait. They charge at him again. He grits his teeth. His wounds and injuries hurt, but he cannot stop. With enviable strength, he pulls the club upwards and manages to push the nearby keiki away. Now the boy is very tired and quite injured. As a result of his injuries, he is losing a lot of red fluid, and everything is becoming blurry. Nosferatu knows that if he dies there, the monsters will eat him, so there is no other option. The more distant keiki begin to launch explosive fireballs in AI's direction. With great effort, he manages to dodge the blows while holding his wounded belly. But being slower now, he doesn't notice another enemy approaching from behind. Gathering all his strength and determination, he manages to kick the attacker. As a penalty, two other keiki manage to hit him with blows to his arm and shoulder. Finally, the poor boy falls to the ground, practically defenseless. A wave of several keikis approaches him with all the bad intentions in the world. But a sinister voice saying, "You fools," hangs in the air, and from Shinigami's back, an explosion manages to decimate all the monsters that were there. One of them even has its head separated from its body. AI cannot believe what he is seeing and understands nothing. The enemies around him simply turn to dust as if they were nothing. He is injured but begins to try to get up again. After trying hard, he stops. Nosferatu says he is very lucky, and he appears behind him with a sarcastic smile, saying he will help him on the condition that no one sees them. Shinigami is amazed and asks if this is the king's ability. He says that controlling keiki power is something he can do, and they need to see the difference between him and AI. The protagonist, smiling, says he always has this kind of superior attitude. Nosferatu explains that he didn't act before because helping the cattle was never something that crossed his mind. Now AI is ready to return to battle and has his new fighting partner by his side. And in an authoritative voice, Nosferatu orders AI to release red fluid for his powerful king. but AI retorts that he should be the one lending his powers. Without reaching a consensus, but with little time, the two charge into battle. Heads, legs, and arms fly as the two soar across the battlefield. Up high, another flying monster observes the situation. In Western Europe, in the human containment zone, about 9,000 meters above the sky, a kind of disc holding an airplane appears. The disc-type keiki gathers information from its own clan in satellite orbit. The order is transmitted to the exotic bird-type border spirit. He receives the orders through his horns. He is a terrifying monster with 10 arms, huge wings, and apparently very strong. And thus, the bombardment begins. The bird monster fires several explosive fireballs. Our hero notices the shots coming from the sky and stays alert. AI on the ground can only have predicted it by chance. He shouts loudly for everyone to duck as a bombardment approaches. And as he had warned, the explosive fireballs hit the ground, causing immense damage. AI ends up getting injured during this sudden attack. He is lying on the ground again with a serious wound on his body. Still, the boy struggles to sit up. Starting to try to get up, he manages to see the destroyed battlefield. And looking up at the sky, something catches his attention. From afar, a very strange and unusual object can be seen in the sky. It is the sinister monster with 10 arms that just unleashed all those explosive balls. Nosferatu warns that it is the bombing-type monster, and it is fierce. AI asks how they can defeat it. The demon explains that it cannot keep bombarding all the time. And at that moment, the monsters that were on the battlefield begin to rise from the ground. Apparently, the monsters have mastered the tactics of hiding in trenches. Many of them start to appear around the protagonist. Nosferatu asks if he is still worried about the soldiers behind, or if he plans to use them as bait. AI asks him to stop talking and start helping him now. A bit of fluid comes out of the protagonist's body into Nosferatu's power, who calls him arrogant. But Kazui, who is nearby, ends up seeing what is happening there. Nosferatu notices that he is looking and thinks this could be problematic. He thinks that if he grabs his knife now, Kazui will notice. The pompadoured one calls for Shinagami, and the boy looks back. He seems quite happy to see that Kazui is okay. But on the other hand, Kazui is not happy and fires in the direction of the hero. However, the shot was not meant to hit him, but rather the keiki behind him. Kazui feels all smug and says he saved the boy. But AI sees no problem in acknowledging that and thanks him for the rescue. Nosferatu is suspicious, wondering if AI has any idea what the boy is planning. Since previously he was able to push Asuka to use her as bait. He does not fear him, but it is quite annoying to be used by this kind of guy. The two continue together across the battlefield. But as usual, AI takes the lead, saying they should go together. With the worst intentions, Kazui knows that partnering with Shinagami will bring him credit. He continues shooting, thinking he will let AI handle everything until reinforcements arrive. Looking back, Kazui can see some people getting closer. Remembering that he is from the elite, and that his father is also a great soldier, he thinks he won't lose to anyone. Kazui plunges his knife into a keiki and says he is the guy who will succeed. But before he can finish the sentence, the protagonist destroys 3 enemies behind him who were about to attack. He is shaken by the quality and speed of his rival's strikes. And while holding the club with one hand, Shinagami continues shooting at the enemies with the other. Kazui cannot comprehend how someone can use a club and a rifle in such a way. And AI doesn't stop for a second, continuing to attack all the monsters that come into the area. The cocky one even wonders if AI has eyes in the back of his head, and if he is really that much worse than him. Nosferatu finds an opening and decides to act at that moment. He uses his arm made of red fluid to push the thoughtful boy. Kazui cannot understand who is pushing him since Shinagami is right in front of him. A monster is very close to the 2 boys and ready to attack at any moment. It comes charging, growling at the cocky one. But Shinagami, as expected, does not let anything bad happen to his combat partner. Kazui's pride shatters into pieces when he is saved so simply by the boy he underestimates so much. And the poor protagonist still innocently asks if this is his way of attracting enemies. During several moments on the battlefield, Nosferatu uses his hands to push, poke, and throw Kazui off balance. Unable to take it anymore, the boy decides to run away with tears in his eyes and wounded pride. The little devil is having a blast with the whole situation and can't hold back his laughter. To him, Kazui is an excellent bait that was a great addition to the group. Kondo, Nu, and Tachikawa are still fighting hard for the squad. A sinister monster can be seen in long-range sight, and Tachibana is able to eliminate enemies with his high-precision rifle shots. The heads of the monsters hit by such shots turn into tiny pieces, and the other creatures around notice this kind of movement. But their fates soon become the same, and their heads are also reduced to crumbs. The remaining ones start to get a little scared and try to protect themselves. With a firm stance and impeccable aim, the black-haired boy continues his attacks. Unfortunately, he cannot concentrate on the nearby area, and the other creatures take advantage of that. But his friend Nu is there to cover him and provide the necessary support. and with his two weapons, one in each hand, he makes several holes in the monsters that were attacking. Nu announces that so far he has made 55 monster kills and asks how many his friend has made. Tachibana replies, still focused on his aim, that he has made 90. This leaves Nu a bit upset. Apparently, he is losing this competition. The black-haired boy has managed to double what the other has, and he thinks that is unfair. Since AI has managed to eliminate almost all the keiki, only a few remain. Sighing, Nu says he should have brought a sniper rifle too, and provocatively, his friend replies that he would need to learn how to use one first. Nu laughs and says that if it weren't for him, Tachikawa wouldn't be able to shoot so calmly. They comment on the rifle getting bent, but the boy says he is prepared for that. The brown-haired boy thinks it's insane to hit targets with a bent barrel. Tachikawa retorts that he uses carbines with just one hand and shouldn't be criticized. They receive the order to move forward to reach the leader. Kondo skillfully keeps the morale of his soldiers high. Tachikawa, Kondo, and Nu are giving their all to reach the protagonist. The battlefield continues to boil with a lot of excitement and fighting. We see Kazui running away like a little child with tears in his eyes. Nosferatu is responsible for this, thanks to his antics that scared the boy. While AI attacks the monsters there as best he can, Nosferatu provokes Kazui, who runs and draws the attention of the keiki. Now with not a drop of courage in his body, the cocky one decides he needs to flee from there. The little devil's fake arm grabs one of his legs and asks where he is going. He is thrown up with all his might towards the battle, and is about to land right in the middle between two keikis that are ready to receive him. But our protagonist is extremely fast and clever and manages to destroy the monsters first. AI looks at his friend and says that his jumping ability is incredible. Kazui can't hold himself up and can't believe this is possible. He doesn't understand why he can't escape and asks if AI is behind this. Finally, the three who are missing appear, calling for Shinigami. The hero is very amazed to see that the three have arrived and are okay. Kondo explains that they were worried because he ran too far ahead alone. The other two comment to each other that AI is indeed very skilled. The enemy's front line has been broken, and the prisoner of war area is nearby. But meanwhile, at that moment, the bombardment from the exotic bird-type spirit began again. AI starts to feel the same sensation as before and looks up. A soldier shouts that it is starting again for everyone to be alert to the bombardment. And as promised, several explosive fireballs begin to fall from the sky like rain. Shinigami grabs Tachikawa's sniper rifle and asks him to lend it to him. He aims at the sky, but Nu says it's too far to hit. But Kondo gestures for him to let him try. AI breathes very calmly while aiming, thinking of shooting the largest fireball. But then he remembers not to rely solely on sight, but to feel the presence. And his gaze calms, he controls his breathing, and begins to try to use his technique. Nosferatu is surprised to see what the boy is capable of doing, and grounding himself, controlling his breathing, and trusting his instincts, the hero shoots. The bullet flies with the speed of the wind towards the target AI chose. It hits the explosive fireball squarely that was among the others, and a huge explosion engulfs the area, causing an immense roar. Like a domino effect, all the other fireballs begin to explode with the impact. The soldiers down below manage to watch everything without suffering any harm. They can't hide their astonishment at such a demonstration of technique. AI is very happy realizing that his plan worked, and now they won't be bombarded. He then returns the weapon to its rightful owner, thanking and praising it. Kondo and Nu praise him a lot while Tachikawa can't believe he was capable of that. Kazui can only watch all of this and suffer with envy, imagining how he fell behind. He finally understands that he can no longer match Shinigami. Shinigami confirms with Kondo about the types of keiki bombers and that they can only bombard twice in a battle. The superior agrees with this statement, and says that if they could bombard freely, the entire base would have already been decimated. But AI remembers that the enemy bombed twice and missed both times. The keiki is approaching the sky with all its speed, diving from the air. Kondo shouts for everyone to pay attention and prepare for battle. The gigantic monster poses in front of the soldiers, unafraid of retaliation. It begins to roar at all its enemies, trying to frighten them. But Kondo shouts back, unafraid, for everyone to shoot at the keiki. And following their superior's orders, the soldiers unload their weapons on the monster. The creature manages to defend itself using its enormous wings as a shield against the bullets. AI realizes that the projectiles have no effect on the enemy's body. Through a gap between its wings, one can see the monster's terrifying red eyes. Shinigami remembers a previous adversary who could also defend against bullets with his arm. The keiki's wings begin to heat up and turn red in parts. The protagonist and Kondo notice this change and stay alert. This prompts him to order his battalion to be careful and duck down. The flying keiki releases a gigantic, steaming ray towards its adversaries. AI barely manages to dodge, ducking down and causing the ray to only hit part of his hair. But unfortunately, many of the soldiers couldn't dodge in time and were hit directly, being cut in half, including Kondo, who ended up being struck by the ray, hitting part of his abdomen and his arm. As the soldiers are torn apart, AI watches in disbelief as his battle partner meets the same sad fate. Those heat rays have so much power, and the monster also has extraordinary defense against bullets. It sweeps the battlefield with its heat ray, forming a semicircle around and hitting the unsuspecting soldiers. And again, its body, especially its wings, begins to change color as if heating up and preparing for another attack. Opening its mouth, the creature slowly begins to emit a bit of light again, as if charging up for another powerful beam. Desperate, AI shouts for everyone to keep their guard up and to be very alert and prepared because the attack is not over yet. And as he predicted, the monster releases another hot beam towards its adversaries. The beam hits AI's weapon, and he realizes that this monster is not just a bombardment type. Seeing the enemy prepare its body and heat up again, the protagonist is facing an exotic keiki. The monster is terrifying like nothing ever seen before. Its red eyes are a testament to how deadly its steaming blows can be. It lunges at the protagonist with its mouth open and its thirst for blood. The monster's dive goes straight past the protagonist and other soldiers who manage to dodge quickly. And again, the keiki is flying while observing its adversaries below, all anxious about what its next attack will be. Nu embraces the body of his leader Kondo with a heavy heart, mourning his death. Kuzui, who is stunned by what just happened, begins to scream, while the other soldiers try to pick up the pieces. The pompadoured one trembles as he shouts that it's all over and everyone is doomed. He has no hope left. AI sees his friend suffering like that, and it makes him reflect on whether he might actually be right since the squad leader has been eliminated. Nu and Tachikawa do not let morale be destroyed. They remind everyone that they are still there and ready to fight. With a smile on his face, Nu says that the squad has been almost completely decimated and the situation on the battlefield remains uncertain. Tachikawa adds that they cannot win with the exotic keiki around and need to defeat it first. He states that the exotic needs to be on the ground to unleash its beams and requires its wings to cool down. He continues by saying that after attacking with the heat beams, it will use its claws and mouth for battle, and that will be the right moment. AI is impressed by the fact that the two can remain calm while analyzing the situation, truly like two experienced warriors. Shinagami closes his eyes and decisively states that he will be the bait. His two partners are surprised by this decision from the boy and widen their eyes. He adds that with the weapons and abilities of Nu and Tachikawa, they will easily break the monster's defense. Nu agrees that this is a good idea and looks at his friend who says he imagined this from the beginning. They ask AI to lead and say they will follow the protagonist's lead. With eyes full of determination and courage, Tachikawa asserts that instead of bait, Shinagami will be in command. Placing a hand on the protagonist's shoulder, Nu says that now is the time for the rookie to shine. Smiling, AI confirms that he will definitely do his best. And Nu, looking back again before concluding his thoughts, searches for someone. Kuzui is literally dragging himself on the ground, scared and cowardly as always. He is surprised to be called by his name, and asks if Nu knows him. The brown-haired boy apologizes for ignoring him while they were in the armored vehicle coming to the battlefield and asks for a favor. The flying keiki, which resembles a gigantic dragon, soars through the cloud-filled sky. As they watch it fly, the three soldiers are preparing for combat. Tachikawa says he is ready, maintaining his determined and fierce gaze. AI also has the same fearless look and agrees that he is prepared. The three boys are in battle stance, each with their weapon, rifle, club, and shotgun. Round 2 of the battle against the boss begins now. The keiki performs a maneuver with its body to make a turn. Taking advantage of this opening, one of the shooters manages to injure part of its wing. This leaves the monster extremely irritated, and it begins to roar incessantly. Shinagami managed to wound it using Kondo's exclusive rifle, and now he knows that the action is about to start. The monster returns to the air to position itself better. Meanwhile, the boys on the battlefield discuss AI taking Kondo's rifle. The rifle may look normal on the outside, but it actually has a hidden power. Kondo was very skilled at shooting with medium-range rifles. Nu explains that the plan is simple. First, AI shoots to take down that thing, and then they deal with it. Tachikawa points out that the creature is quite fast and is very attentive to the protagonist's shots. And precisely because it is so focused on the rifle shots, this will create the perfect opportunity. Shinagami starts the plan by shooting at the flying monster that tries to dodge the projectiles. The enemy is constantly on guard against long-range shots from rifles. But since AI was the last to shoot, the monster will pay more attention to him now. The creature comes charging at him, flying down with its mouth wide open. The king silently observes the exotic type within AI. The monster seems intent on personally eliminating the opponent who disrupted its bombardment. Nosferatu notes that as generations passed, individual self-awareness intensified. Now instead of shooting, AI is running to serve as bait for the flying monster. But the keiki is extremely agile and almost reaches our protagonist effortlessly. and that's when suddenly the creature is caught off guard by a precise shot. We move away from the keiki and head towards the shooter, who fired from a long-range rifle. It's Tachikawa who, thanks to his immense skill with rifles, managed to hit the target. The shooter struck a critically vital point, and the creature begins to scream. Since it can no longer fly and can barely see, the creature lands. At that moment, the heroes take the opportunity to disable the keiki's wings so it can no longer fly. Nu and Shinigami fire numerous shots at the body and wings of the monster. But in a spinning motion, the enemy manages to bring its claw close to Nu, and with one of its sharp claws, it pierces the boy's abdomen. AI panics upon seeing his battle companion gravely injured, and the monster, now with one injured eye, stares at the wounded boy. But with a smile on his face and a determined look, Nu finally speaks. And even with his injured body, he begins to shoot with his shotguns using both hands. This causes damage to the monster's wings, and also throughout its body, inflicting severe wounds. As if using his last strength to perform the attack, Nu declares that it's now AI's turn. The boy, affected by his companion's severe injuries, prepares to draw his weapon. But the enemy doesn't wait and begins charging its next laser beam from its mouth. AI realizes he is being targeted and is more than ready for it. But before he can launch his attack, the creature turns to the right, surprising the protagonist. And in fact, Tachikawa, who was aiming from a distance, is now the true target of the explosive keiki. And the boy with black hair prepares himself, knowing that mutual destruction is their only chance. Both the monster and the boy unleash their attacks almost simultaneously. But even though Tachikawa's bullet hit the target a moment earlier, it wasn't enough to stop the heat ray from reaching its goal. But before being burned, Tachikawa still manages to speak, saying that it wasn't so bad after all. The keiki, on the other hand, seems quite affected by the bullet, and blue liquid drips from its injured eye. Turning to aim at AI was merely a tactic of intimidation, and after surviving 2 traps, the protagonist charges forward with the desire to kill. Despite being badly injured, the monster is still trying to charge its attacks, and with 4 arms on each side, it begins to gather energy in each of its hands. Both sides are equally determined to die, and the keiki is ready to self-destruct, its claws charged for the strike. AI continues his movements, unstoppable, but a voice emerges in his mind, saying the word, "Idiot," and in a matter of seconds the keiki's arms are shredded to pieces. It is the king of the keiki making his moves from within AI, putting an end to the insubordinate. Nosferatu shouts for Shinigami to finish the job quickly. With hatred in his eyes, the protagonist lets out his fiercest battle cry and charges forward. He uses his powerful club to deliver the final blow directly to the monster. The strike lands squarely on the giant's belly, which feels the impact immediately, and without finishing his charge, AI leaps and continues towards his enemy. The creature can see with its remaining eye its last moments. Unwavering, the protagonist holds his weapon and aims directly at the opponent's body. Shinigami lands from his jump on the keiki's body and unloads his shots onto it. The creature's head falls to the ground, finally unconscious after such a battle. The protagonist is exhausted and panting, feeling all the consequences of the fight. He screams at the top of his lungs. With the setting sun behind him, they emerge victorious. Facing the corpse of the adversary, the protagonist shouts in relief for his victory. Kazui is right behind, observing everything and can hardly believe that AI succeeded. He is incredulous to see how someone can survive fighting a monster like that. But the last blow comes to his memory, and something makes him suspicious about the destroyed arms. All that effort was too much for the protagonist, who is now starting to lose consciousness. The spiky-haired one realizes that the boy is falling unconscious. But before fainting, AI manages to hold on while kneeling. Kazui wonders how he didn't die. Shinigami becomes furious upon seeing that his friends Nu and Tachibana apparently did not survive. Nu's body is very close to the boy, unfortunately badly injured. Approaching his unconscious friend, AI says he managed to complete the mission. Kazui confirms that Tachikawa also did not survive as the entire area was vaporized. But something interrupts the protagonist's mourning and catches his attention. The ground of the battlefield is vibrating in a strange way. Enemies are approaching, and in large numbers, they are the reinforcements. Kazui analyzes the flanking maneuvers the enemies have made and can hardly believe that there are still enemies remaining. He realizes that their battalion is finished. There are almost no one left, and those who remain are exhausted and out of ammunition. If they stay there, they will definitely be killed. The spiky-haired one is restless, unsure of how to act or what to think. AI asks if he still has the thing Nu gave him. He is surprised by this question but looks at the protagonist. And then he remembers when Nu handed him something to take to Asakawa in case they lost. Asakawa was the blonde girl who bombarded Kazui with questions and sent him to this unit. The boy takes the object that Nu gave him and wonders what it is. It is a type of USB drive with important information that would help for future operations. In the memory, Kazui asked why Nu was giving this to him. and he explained that the two showed a very high survival rate among the rookies, and that especially Kazui seems to have extraordinary luck. Shinagami adds that he was the only survivor of the class and the training camp. Tachikawa and Nu are even more confident that Kazui is the right guy to keep the object. Smiling, AI agrees that he is absolutely trustworthy, and to finish, Nu places his arms on Kazui's shoulders, and whispers in his ear that handing over this object would be a redemption for him for having fled. He understands and agrees to accept this delivery mission. Now, with that small USB drive in his hands, he observes that his destiny lies in that small object. AI asks him to go deliver it while he stays there holding off the enemies. The spiky-haired one shouts in agreement and says he will deliver it. The two surviving boys hold hands forming a pact. Nosferatu disapproves, wondering what those two idiots are doing. Shinagami says that if Kazui manages to survive, it will be a redemption for him too. The boy does not understand this remark and asks what he means by that. AI adds that it is his fault that everyone died since he is the Reaper. He starts running in the opposite direction of his friend, saying that he is counting on him. Kazui comes to the conclusion that Shinagami is truly monstrous. He hopes that AI only lives under the hero's spotlight and dies so that he has time. But despite being willing to sacrifice himself, our protagonist also has the desire to survive. For a moment he thinks he is alone, but then remembers Nosferatu, who is different from the other Keiki. This makes him a little more relieved and he manages to take a deep breath. Then he turns to his hand and asks if Nos is there. Nosferatu appears and asks why he simply didn't escape. He dismisses the question and says he understands AI's strange way of thinking, and then asks what he wants. The boy replies that he wants to borrow his strength again, and if that is okay. Not understanding this question, the demon says he has been helping him from the beginning. AI remembers what he did with the explosive Keiki and thanks him for that earlier. The king feels nauseated by the boy's sudden gratitude. Thanks to him, they were able to defeat the enemy. If he didn't thank him, he wouldn't be human. Nosferatu adds that he has already protected him several times, and with a sarcastic smile, he pauses his speech. Laughing like a true boss, he realizes that AI has now managed to understand the concept of manners. One can see a cloud of dust raised by the crowd of approaching monsters. Nosferatu places his little hands on his hips, ready for whatever comes. Our protagonist also prepares, drawing his club and weapon. He wants to show the civilians the power of a true king, and begins his assaults. The two fighters combat the monsters together, AI with his weapons and Nos with his real powers. With a gleam in his eyes, our tireless Reaper charges at all his adversaries. We see Nosferatu explaining the three conditions AI needs to be able to revive, and he emphasizes that if his heart is devoured, he will not be able to revive at all. A pile of keikis forms around AI, who is managing to hold his ground in battle. But all this fighting is pushing him to his limit, and he is already quite injured. And being exhausted, he lowers his guard, allowing the monsters to bite him. The keiki that bit his arm is hit by a spiky counterattack. This gives AI the opportunity to retaliate and strike the monster that is attacking his leg as well. Injured, he falls to his knees on the battlefield. Even with Nosferatu's help, he is reaching the maximum of what he can fight. Trying to push his limits, he battles with himself to endure and get back up. A gigantic keiki approaches the exhausted hero, and without waiting a second, the monster lunges to attack him. Shinagami knows he won't be able to dodge this attack, and the monster manages to bite his arm that is holding the weapon. But with so much perseverance, the protagonist still manages to pull the trigger. The keiki is exploded from the inside out, causing a thunderous noise, and the shots from the projectiles are so strong at close range that they create a blue illumination. The creature falls unconscious to the ground. Once again, our hero has emerged victorious, but he realizes that 4 wolf-type keikis and 3 ghost-type keikis are ready to attack him. He is extremely exhausted and has little strength left to perform another counterattack. Gathering his breath, he manages to move his arm quickly. He strikes directly at the head of one of the attacking adversaries. The blow is so powerful that it pierces the body of the middle monster, hitting those behind it as well, and they all explode, causing a deafening noise in the area. Holding his knife and with his arm badly injured, the hero does not give up at any moment. Now he begins to strike the remaining enemies with agile knife blows. Even without movement in his left hand, with his leg injured and out of bullets, he continues to fight. The exhausted protagonist wonders how many enemies are still left. His vision is becoming increasingly blurry, and he can barely keep his eyes open. Nosferatu tries to defend him, saying that he knows what will happen if he dies there. The little demon is also struggling not to give in, but his swords are weakening more and more. Even the king of Keiki is worried about the condition of the two. He shouts, calling AI's attention to retreat quickly. In his mind, Shinagami begins to try to reanimate himself, no matter how many enemies remain. Rising, the boy still manages to cut the neck of another nearby Keiki. Nosferatu continues to assist the boy but shouts again for him to retreat. AI says he knows he needs to kill all the creatures, but Nosferatu asks what he is saying. The demon thinks he has lost too much strength and is out of his normal mental faculties. All battered, the protagonist shouts that even if it costs him his life, he will eliminate them all. Memories of his childhood, when his parents were devoured by keikis, resurface. As he stabs his enemies, he screams that it is for his parents, and for all the others. And in his mind, the memories of all the allies he has lost up to that point flash by, including the most recent ones like Kondo, Tachikawa, and Nu. With a thirst for violence, the boy screams that it was these monsters that killed all his companions. He looks up and screams in despair that they are all traitors. Nosferatu is frightened, and with unwavering determination, he runs toward the enemies. A stealthy keiki approaches the protagonist from behind without making a sound, and it manages to strike his body with a blow. Its claws pierce his chest. AI feels the force of the blow, gritting his teeth in indescribable pain. But with all the strength he has left, he grips his knife tightly, making several cuts on the monster, in 3 different slashes. But perhaps he has finally reached his limit. He falls to his knees on the ground, and finally lies down on the battlefield, completely out of strength. Many keikis remain in the area, and seeing that the protagonist has fallen, they charge forward with speed. Nosferatu's voice resonates in his head, urging him to get up quickly. The keikis are right in front of him, but his vision is completely dark at that moment. A ray of light pierces the battlefield, making a loud and shrill noise. Footsteps can be heard approaching the fallen protagonist. A man with white hair and an eye patch approaches, finding all of this interesting. He wields a weapon with the word Kyuden forged into it. It is a massive axe, much larger than its wielder. The man lifts the eye patch, revealing a red eye, and says it is as expected of Sakurai. He apologizes for the delay, and AI asks who he is. It is Kyuden Ryusei, the captain of the bait unit. He has a different right eye from the left. Shinagami remembers Hanamori explaining to him about the most powerful human soldier. Lifting his enormous axe, he says he is the savior of the protagonist. And in an abrupt movement, he delivers a precise axe strike right to AI's neck. The blow certainly seems fatal, hitting squarely and causing a lot of pain. Kyuden finishes by saying that he will also be the one to kill him. The atmosphere on the battlefield is very tense. Kyuden Ryusei stands next to the hero. He looks to the side. Something catches his attention. Noticing that the exotic keiki has been defeated, he asks if the main course has been finished. Sighing somewhat relieved, he says that then there is no way. But before he can finish his thought, a group of keikis interrupts him as they approach. With little difficulty, he swings his axe and manages to chop them all up. Smiling confidently, the man says he has victory in numbers. We see a battlefield still full of shooting soldiers and advancing monsters. A keiki bites the head off a soldier while another watches, dying of fear. Devourer and Devoured are hit by high-caliber shots that pierce them. It is the 7th District's Prisoner Liberation Task Force. One of the soldiers asks anxiously who they are. The blonde man in dark glasses explains that they are the bait, and asks to leave the rest to them. But he corrects himself, saying he would like to say that but they are short on numbers and would like reinforcements. The soldier would like to help him, but says he is completely out of bullets. Then the blonde asks if there aren't enough bullets on the dead soldiers. Another soldier appears and says that they killed them and now would have to look at the corpses. But the dark glasses guy says they are just losers and to avoid ending up like them, the soldiers need to look for bullets. Trembling, the first soldier to talk to him thinks it is just as the rumors say. The bait unit really does have as its captain the strongest human infantryman, Kyuden Ryusei. The blonde orders them to move faster so as not to keep the captain waiting. After that, near our protagonist, Ryusei continues to take out several keikis. The 7th Infantry Regiment repelled the keiki and successfully recovered their objective, the human containment zone. Unfortunately, the casualties and losses are many, including Kondo, Nu, Tachikawa among others. Despite all these painful losses, the battle for the liberation of the prisoners was successful. And the next day, we can see the battlefield different with a type of structure set up. It seems to be a base for research or recovery of injured soldiers. Shinagami AI wakes up with a start, screaming. He wonders where he is and what happened to him. The boy is on a table with all his limbs tied up. A man sitting behind him stands up saying 18 hours, 36 minutes, and 43 seconds. It is Ryusei who explains that this time is how long it took him to revive from his death. Smiling and staring at the protagonist, he asks if he has any explanation for that. AI is speechless. Many things are running through his mind, but he knows he needs to keep his secret. Impatient, the white-haired man asks again if he has any explanation. Despair takes over Shinagami's body. He believes the guy has discovered Nos. Lifting his eye patch, Ryusei says that by merging with a keiki he gained resurrection powers. With a trembling voice, AI tries to say something but the words don't come out. He closes his eyes, sighing and taking a deep breath to try to calm down. Then he decides to confess and say that he did merge with a keiki. Ryusei says he knows that, but imagined he would try to argue a bit first. The protagonist says that at this point there is not much to argue about, but asks him to let him finish. Shaking his head, Kyuden says he understands his situation. Drawing a saw, he says there is no way to know if he will lie or tell the truth. Seeing that tool, AI goes into despair. His heart races. The sadistic white-haired man says he is now going to destroy him. He asks the boy to hold on tight as it will be very quick. Holding the protagonist's wrist, he says he wants to know how long it takes for his pulse to recover. And without mercy, he begins to use the saw to injure Shinagami. The sinister man seems to be having a lot of fun with this. He sticks his tongue out almost in ecstasy. But something causes the saw to fly out of his hand. It is Nosferatu and his sword. This surprises the white-haired man, who is left speechless. Nosferatu is glaring at his tormentor with a lot of hatred in his eyes. But interrupting that barbaric scene, a hand opens the curtains of the place. It's Dr. Asuka, who arrives asking if everything is okay with AI. She is accompanied by Sakurai Ayato, and both observe that bizarre scene. Nosferatu states in front of everyone that AI should have clarified to him that this body belongs to him. King Keiki is determined to defend his so-called cattle. AI doesn't know how to react. He looks at the two who have just arrived. Asuka is completely shocked. She puts her hand on her chin in surprise. Ayato sighs and asks in a firm tone what is happening there. Even more confused than the newcomers, AI also wants to know. In a great confusion, Asuka and Ayato witness a very strange scene. Shocked, the girl asks if AI is okay. She asks why Shinagami needs to be tied up if he is not a threat. Ryusei, quite harshly, tells the girl to get out of the way, and that if she doesn't obey him, she will die. Asuka notices something different coming from the protagonist's wrist. AI doesn't know what to say and starts to stutter, unable to explain himself. Joining his hands and making a clapping sound, Ayato interrupts the conversation. With a sweet voice and almost in melody, he asks them to have something first. We see the outside of the place, and someone says that something smells very good. Ayato is taking a sip of some drink from a teacup. He is surprised by the quality of the beans in this place, mentioning that the cattle are eating better. Now everyone is seated at the table. The protagonist is no longer tied up, and each has a drink. Ryusei is thinking about AI's body, and how it looks delicious since the fusion with Keiki. Meanwhile, AI is not feeling well at all. He is shivering and has a terrible sensation. Ayato asks Asuka if she managed to understand the current situation. Stuttering, she tries to confirm what she understood, that now AI is with a Keiki. The head of the equipment development department agrees and says that they fused. Lowering his head, Shinagami apologizes for never having been able to tell Asuka about this. She approaches him and asks if he is really okay and if his body is truly fine. The boy explains that everything is fine and that he was actually saved several times by this little guy. Nosferatu appears in his hand and becomes furious at being called that way. Asuka is startled by the sudden appearance, but AI tries to introduce him in a friendly manner. Despite this, the little devil is not very friendly and just crosses his arms and turns away. The girl is still incredulous about all of this, especially with the image of the being. Ryusei tries to understand what Sakurai was planning by having the two meet now. The girl interested in AI might have been surprised by this abrupt declaration, but Asuka's expression changes completely, and she says that she is very grateful to him for saving AI. Nosferatu and Ryusei think exactly the same thing, that this woman is beyond saving. But the demon thinks that if she is with AI, then they must be of the same kind. While sipping his tea, the white-haired man thinks that these people are very interesting. Shinagami apologizes again, but Asuka turns her face and says she will not forgive him for hiding this information from her. The girl leans closer to Nosferatu and says that the boy may seem strong, but he is still a child. Then she squeezes the demon's tiny hand and asks him to take very good care of him. Nosferatu likes this attitude and says that she seems to be very obedient cattle. He adds that he is a king and that taking care of this child is quite possible. The girl winks at him and, in a sweet and friendly voice, thanks him again. She asks AI to behave properly, and the boy has the impression that Nos is now his guardian. Sakurai laughs at the situation and says that they really seem like a big warm family. Putting his cup back on the table, he asks them to return to the main point of the situation. He fills his drink with milk and says that from the beginning he suspected the new recruit. All the information he has is that he fused with a Keiki and acquired immortality. AI is willing to tell the whole truth, but Nosferatu asks him not to say anything because they are not trustworthy. King Keiki is surprised that Shinagami is so open and naive in this way. He says he thinks those people are nice, and that they can trust them. Nosferatu tries to remind him that they have just been tortured and had their heads cut off by Ryusei. The protagonist explains that he is half Keiki and that it is understandable they want to eliminate him. Those words make no sense to the Keiki king, who cannot comprehend. Everyone present feels the same way and agrees. AI adds that they could have used Asuka as a hostage, so he trusts Sakurai. Ryusei believes that Sakurai may have done this precisely to gain his trust. Irritated, Nosferatu insists that this is a trap to catch him off guard. But smiling, the protagonist says that even if it is a trap, he doesn't mind falling into it. Clenching his fists and grinding his teeth in anger, the Demon King can barely hold himself back. He then sighs and simply says that AI is a very nice boy. Sakurai maintains his neutral expression, but Ryusei seems to wear a sadistic smile. Shinigami asks if he can talk about Nosa's matters, and he says it doesn't matter since he doesn't listen to him anyway. The other three present in the room are convinced that the two have a good relationship. Shinigami then begins to explain to everyone present everything he has experienced with Nosferatu up to that point. Major Sakurai ordered that AI be transferred to Team Kyuden and returned to the battlefield. And again we see the outside of the soldier's resting place. Then the boy saw a new kind of hell, various body parts of Keiki and humans on the battlefield. Incredulous, he wonders if everyone, both enemies and people on his side, is dead. Putting on a mask, Asuka asks AI to help her bring everyone back home. The boy's next mission is to protect while they recover the bodies and provide a dignified burial for them. Sakurai smiles and asks Ryusei to behave and not go eating random things. With his eyes closed, the white-haired man complies with his superior's orders. Ryusei says he will teach the protagonist how to use his suit. Asuka kneels before the body of a soldier and offers the proper prayers in his honor. With a sad look, she closes the zipper of the body bag. AI feels sick seeing the scene and thinks that she has been doing this while he was sleeping. The girl manages to lift the corpse, probably with the strength she received from her suit. Still, she comments that it is somewhat heavy. Ryusei remarks that the strength the suit provides is not just for combat but has many uses. As a good example, it makes digging trenches much easier. The protagonist spots a drone flying in the sky above them. Without Keiki's nearby, the signal interference disappears, and they can search for the bodies better. Under some rubble on the ground, two bright red eyes appear, and suddenly a Keiki rises from the ground and charges straight at Asuka. But before the horrendous creature can reach the girl, it is surprised by a punch. Without much effort, Ryusei manages to prevent Asuka from suffering a surprise attack. The creature falls unconscious to the ground immediately, and there are no more threats. All of this happens so quickly that AI's eyes couldn't keep up. Ryusei adds that he can use drones to find enemies. If the signal is interfered with, it means there is one nearby. And then it makes perfect sense to Shinigami why they need guards to recover bodies. Kyuden takes a type of digital map that shows where enemies might be hiding. He explains that sometimes the soldiers themselves will need to hold memorials for the bodies. The troops may need the drones, but he and AI, who can see the aura of the creatures, do not. Lifting his eye patch, the man says that the boy seems to not be in the best shape. AI apologizes because he still doesn't know how to use his power very well, but Ryusei says he will help him. And although he can now rely on the powers of the Keiki he has united with, in the future, he will need to use only the powers of his suit. This way, he will be able to become even more powerful. Shinigami feels somewhat intimidated by Ryusei's expression and feels a chill. Nosferatu takes this statement personally and asks if he means that his strength is not enough. With a sarcastic smile, Ryusei stares at the king of Keiki, and he firmly plants his feet on the ground. This causes a powerful electric current that begins to shock AI. He feels unable to move his body and does not understand what is happening. Getting very close to Nosferatu, he tells him not to forget that he can kill him at any moment. But without being intimidated, the king of Keiki says he thinks the same and that he can also kill him. He makes a sword appear behind the neck of the man with white hair. With a friendlier expression, he says that it's better for them to get along for now. He adds by asking if the fact that Shinigami is getting stronger is also good for him. The demon says they cannot be careless with this guy and that they should exterminate him soon. But the protagonist is amazed by the shock powers that Ryusei just used and ignores the warnings. Kyuden says he should keep it a secret, but since the boy is his subordinate, smiling, he says he will make an exception and teach him personally. Some military vehicles are moving through the already empty battlefield. AI is still dealing with the last Keikis that appear now and then. With just one punch, he managed to send the monster flying. Furious, the creature glares at him, gathering strength to counterattack. He is pretending to be asleep because he got irritated, and AI is having to deal with the creatures without his help. Ryusei observes his pupil and gives some tips on how he can improve his techniques. But the poor protagonist cannot quite understand his new master's advice. Putting his hand on his face, he doesn't have much hope for his apprentice's intelligence. Firming his feet on the ground, he prepares to attack the Keiki that is coming at him full force. And he manages to deliver a punch so powerful that it practically destroys the monster. Looking disdainfully at the protagonist, Ryusei says that's how it's done. The boy is dumbfounded, but he has come to a conclusion. He questions whether this guy he is talking to could really be careful. AI is awestruck by the beauty of the place. It is much more beautiful than he imagined. Although some parts are damaged, it doesn't look like a containment zone. The military vehicles approach the area, and some people on foot do as well. The protagonist is still incredulous, observing all the details of the place. It is much richer than the immigrant street, and seems much more peaceful too. But AI notices that the gazes of the people are not very friendly. They might still be traumatized. Even the children look at him with unfriendly expressions. Ryusei notices that the boy seems a bit spaced out, and asks what he is thinking about. He adds by asking if it's his first time in the city and that they have everything there. The man explains that these people worship the keiki as if they were gods, hence the unfriendly looks. Now everything makes sense. AI looks around and realizes that indeed everyone is sulking. Shinagami asks his captain where they are going now. He wonders if it's a night watch or just to clear the enemies from the district. But Ryusei surprises him by answering that they are going to eat. In a beautiful 2-story house with very chic architecture. The army has taken control of this area, and now this house serves as a temporary base. The captain asks him to go take a shower and not to worry about the smell of red fluid because it takes a while to wash off. The boy runs ahead, and they enter the large, beautiful house. Shinagami turns on the shower and is surprised that warm water comes out. It's the premium shower he needed. He starts to feel life returning to his body. After taking his shower, he introduces himself again, feeling rejuvenated. He arrives in a room where several soldiers, commanders, and captains are seated. They all seem a bit strange and have a grim expression. Shivering, AI wonders who these people are. Ryusei introduces the protagonist to the others and says that these are his squad mates. Saluting, the boy formally introduces himself to make a good impression. A person with a side-cut hairstyle immediately brings up his dreaded nickname, the Reaper. And another man eating sarcastically says he wants to see how long he will last there. A dark-skinned man with a beard provokes him by saying that this is the face of someone running to their death. Ryusei corrects them, asking them to at least pretend to be nice at first glance. 2 other men exchange surprised looks. Then, in a sudden general movement, everyone stands up from their seats. And in unison, they greet him for joining the ragtag squad, which specializes in being bait. The protagonist bows politely and says he is looking forward to working with them. Now with a much friendlier vibe, the group applauds the boy, who feels much better. Ryusei points to a spot at the dining table next to him, and Shinagami goes over there. A blonde man with sunglasses introduces himself to the protagonist as Noba, the vice captain. A girl with round glasses approaches with a large pot. She is the cook who came to serve them. She says it's fresh from the pot and comes closer with the food. Everyone present thanks the girl and rushes towards the pot. The young woman turns to AI and formally introduces herself, explaining that she is responsible for the meals. The boy shakes her hand in a polite and kind greeting. Ryusei is enjoying the meal and says that the best part is being able to eat the food hot. With a somewhat uneasy feeling, Shinagami thinks that he is eating right after dealing with a mission like that. He thinks that if it were the old him, he probably wouldn't be able to eat for a while. But without wasting time, he puts a spoonful of food in his mouth. Determined, he thinks he needs to eat to be strong for the day ahead and work hard. The captain observes his pupil eating and lets out a somewhat mischievous smile. He offers the boy his portion as well and asks him to eat plenty. Shinagami accepts the challenge and starts eating again. And as he puts the spoon in his mouth, his face turns all red and hot because it is extremely spicy. The others start laughing and say that the captain loves very spicy food. The young woman offers water. The person with the side cut winks at AI and says that it wasn't bad for a rookie. The bearded man laughs while saying that he was initiated very quickly. Ryusei turns to the protagonist, asking if it wasn't delicious. And still sweating from the spice, the boy says yes but prefers not to eat more. This causes everyone at the dinner table to laugh, creating a pleasant atmosphere among newfound friends. AI is not tearing up just because of the spice. He feels that he might fit in there. The day turns into night as the sky darkens, and we see a multi-story building. The mayor of the containment zone is sitting on a sofa with a rather unfriendly expression. Sakurai is talking to him and asks if he is asking them to leave. There seems to be a tense conversation between the mayor and Sakurai. The bespectacled man asks to confirm if he is indeed asking them to leave. Worried, the mayor says that the population was satisfied with the life they had been leading until now, even under the shadow of potentially being consumed by the keiki at any moment. Sakurai questions this. Ayato points out that he probably doesn't feel that fear because he is on the side of those who choose the sacrificed. The head of the equipment development department casts a sinister glance. But the mayor says that it is not just his decision. It is a decision made by all the residents. Only a select group of people chooses who gets devoured. But Sakurai questions the feelings of those who are chosen. Agitated, the mayor says that this is part of the agreement they made with the keiki, and it is the only way. Looking out the window, that word leaves the man deep in thought and agreement. Several harvests are made in the containment zone, and Sakurai asks what fertilizer is used. Night falls as the two men continue their tense conversation. The man says that the bodies of the keiki are extremely nutritious. They offer sacrifices, and the keiki fatten them up. The food also increases, making it a perfect human ranch. This observation from Sakurai leaves the mayor extremely irritated. Ayato says that this is the result of their efforts, and is glad he doesn't have to worry about being devoured. Glancing at the mayor out of the corner of his eye, sarcastically, he says that it is unusually good. Pointing a finger in Sakurai's face, the mayor fears that keiki from other areas will attack because of him. The chief responds that since it is a great ranch, they might want to take it back. Ayato explains that there are some special keiki considered kings, called lords, and that ranch is certainly under the control of a lord, and the mayor must have made an agreement with one. And then, Base 7 has taken back several cities in recent weeks. This will cause the lord to try to attack Base 7 in due time. Stammering, the mayor confirms his thoughts. But with a villainous look, Ayato says that this is exactly what they want the most. He questions whether it is not more convenient to establish a base in the resource-rich containment zone than in barren places. The mayor can hardly believe what he hears and asks if he is thinking of abandoning the base. Smiling amicably, Sakurai says he is not talking about abandonment. Base 7 would not be destroyed. He speaks of approximately 70% loss. Feeling chills, the mayor knows that this means 70% of the soldiers would die, and that the communication satellites would be destroyed by the keiki, just like the long-range wireless systems. He questions whether Ayato is not a spy who is well within the district. After attacking Base 7, the lord who lost his ranch will not think of any agreement, and will attack everyone. For years, the keiki had been holding back, but at this moment, it would be like a true celebration. Even if they surrender now, the keiki will not stop. They will definitely eat everyone. Envisioning this possibility leaves the mayor terrified and shivering. In desperation, the man kneels, saying he can't believe this is happening because until now, everything was fine. Sakurai disapproves, stating that sacrificing his people is not the right way. And now it is the mayor's turn to make his decisions. Trembling in agony, the man asks what Sakurai wants them to do. Ayato says just one word: support. For the victory of the human allied forces, they need the mayor's assistance. Both kneeling now, they hold hands as a sign of partnership. For humanity, for the world, for the future of all, Sakurai asks them to fight together. The mayor is drenched in sweat as if he has run a marathon, and he calls him a monster. 3 days later, two motorcycles traverse an empty field. They are the off-road Recon 2-stroke motorcycles. They are desperately fleeing from some keiki that are quickly pursuing them. The worried soldiers look back and realize that the keiki are almost catching up to them. One of the keiki gets very close, nearly biting the soldier. But a punch lands on the skeletal face of the monster. It is our protagonist performing an attack similar to what Ryusei taught him. The entire troop is there, using optical camouflage, exclusive to Team Kyuden. The keiki are numerous and now realize they have more adversaries. Sticking his tongue out in excitement, Kyuden orders them not to let any escape. The soldiers begin firing their shots in the direction of the enemies. In a few minutes, the battlefield is completely cleared of monsters. Sakurai praises one of the soldiers and asks him to enter the containment zone to rest. He warns that the enemy lord will come to reclaim this location. Ryusei asks if they will serve as bait again, but he denies it and says he has already called in regional forces to provide cover. We can see all the arrows pointing to a single location. They will be the guerrilla that will eliminate the lord while the other soldiers engage. This word catches Shinagami's attention, and he repeats it in his mind. A new unit acting independently, human allied forces from Earth, Western Europe, and an independent squad from Japan. The warriors seem confident and promising. Together they form the Kyuden guerrilla. Suddenly, something comes to the protagonist's mind, his last interaction with Kazui Tekaharu. He becomes absorbed in his thoughts, wondering how he is doing now. The battlefield is clear of enemies, and only the troops are present. The guerrilla unit was established 2 days ago. AI was talking to a girl. Guard training. 2 participants. 1 left early, 3 are relaxing. Kyuden explains that he needs to go talk to Sakurai and will leave the rest in their hands. The person with a side cut is a sergeant, a genius in martial arts and marksmanship, saying this is a hassle. The person calls for Hikari, a young girl who is nearby. The brown-skinned man with a beard explains that Hikari is like a little sister to the team. He is Kozuka, the veteran who explains that the girl is great in hand-to-hand combat. AI looks at the girls. Apparently, Satwan is considered a woman only biologically. Koyama warns that both can kill keiki even without their gear. The protagonist gets excited to learn that they can rely solely on their human strength. The veterans find all this enthusiasm from the rookie interesting. Seeing his dedication, they decide to leave the rest in the boy's hands. Satome says she will leave the rest with Hikari, and she then asks if she will be the one to teach the rookie. But Komatsu thinks the girl is the most suitable for this job anyway. The friendly little girl then approaches him and says it will just be the two of them now. Shinagami introduces himself formally, but she asks him not to do that since she is younger than him. But he insists because she is the veteran and has a higher rank than his. Smiling, she asks him to just call her Hikari and wonders if she can call him AI. He agrees, saying she can call him whatever she prefers. The girl seems quite excited, saying it has been a while since the team had someone so energetic. The two laugh together, and he feels at ease with her. Getting straight to the point, Hikari asks if he just started practicing the Kyuden style. AI confirms, and apparently, he didn't even know that the style's name was Kyuden. But the girl explains that there isn't a special name. Everyone refers to it that way because it is Kyuden style. When she talks about her master, her eyes shine, and she says she has been learning his style since she was little. This catches Shinagami's attention, and he asks to know more. Hikari explains that her city was attacked when she was very young, and that after the attack, the Keiki could have devoured them, but at that moment, Master Kyuden appeared and saved them just in time. He taught them that there was still hope, and they learned martial arts to fight with the suits. And since then, everyone on Team Kyuden has become part of her family. This leaves Shinagami quite surprised, as they were soldiers while still children. Since they couldn't survive in any case, Kyuden took them in. Sheena shares that many died, and some who survived can no longer fight. But that's why she decided to fight for all those who have already departed. Excited, AI says she will also fight for everyone and for her friends in Ebony. Hikari adds that only she and her sister Satwan can use the Kyuden style. Everyone is training hard, but only they manage to. So it's nice that Kyuden recognized AI. The two enthusiastic youths decide that they will do their best to complete the training. The girl starts to move in the field, and Shinagami quickly follows her. She approaches some luxury cars and says that now they will begin the training. Confused, AI asks her senior what those cars are. They are private items of the mayor, and now they will be repurposed. They are cars that were on display but are now broken and cannot be used. The cars take up too much space, so they hope they can be shrunk a bit now. But we can see that the mayor is not as happy to part with his collection as they say. And then, after explaining everything Sakurai said, Hikari concludes her introduction. AI tries to guess what they meant by the part about shrinking the cars. And the girl explains that they will make the cars smaller with their fists. So they will dispose of waste and train at the same time. The young lady prepares herself and takes a pose, Kyuden style, demon crushing fist. She firmly plants her feet on the ground to maintain her balance. Hikari, a prodigy trained by Kyuden Ryusei, uses the suit to amplify her strength and unleash the Kyuden style. She punches the car, and an absurd explosion ripples through the bodywork, easily destroying the vehicle. After finishing her strike, smiling at her friend, she says it's quite easy. AI's eyes shine with such a display of power, and he praises her. Hikari asks if he can do the same, and he says he will try. From a distance, explosions and movements near the cars can be seen on the battlefield. The rookie Shinagami doesn't do too badly. He manages to lift the car with the force of his punch. But for him, that's not enough. He starts to get frustrated for not being able to do more. Hikari explains that this punch is the prerequisite for him to perform the other techniques of the style. She says that if he stomps the ground with force, it's like channeling his strength and releasing it through his fist. He needs to let the muscle strength enhanced by the suit flow through his body. This flow of energy is called Jin, and he needs to get used to that sensation. While Nosferatu sleeps, AI is working hard to understand this Jin energy. AI thinks that this method might work, but it has caveats. She believes she will need Nosferatu's help. Last time, Nos ended up overexerting himself in battle, and recently, he has needed to sleep a lot to recover all that energy. The other members of Team Kyuden watch AI's training. Kozuka asks Satwan if everything is okay over there. She asks if they hadn't agreed to destroy cars together. But the man says it's not about that. It's about Hikari being with the monster inside AI. The girl says that this is not a problem at all and asks if he heard about the fusion with the Keiki at last night's dinner. The image of Shinagami talking to a king Keiki in his hand is in their minds. Satwan says that everyone wants to kill the Keiki and that, as the boss said, they must use all available powers. While smoking a cigarette, the sergeant says they need to see if the rookie is really useful. Despite not wanting to depend on Nosferatu, AI calls for him in her hand. He doesn't respond at the moment she calls. But after waiting a bit, the little devil appears in her hand with a sleepy expression. He appears to both AI and Hikari, who is surprised to see the Lord King of Ghosts. Irritated that Shinagami hasn't made any progress and that he can't sleep, he blames the boy. It turns out that anxiety and restlessness have reached him as well. So the demon asks what the protagonist intends to do now. The boy called her because according to Hikari's teachings, he thought of a method. He remembers her explaining about letting the energy flow in his body and releasing it with his fist, and letting the muscle strength enhanced by the suit flow, the energy called Jin. AI believes that if he uses the strength of Nos, he might be able to master Jin. Hikari, amazed by the boy's cleverness, understands his plan. He apologizes if this seems like cheating in any way, but smiling, the girl says that doesn't exist. The Kyuden art is not a doctrine but rather a technique to defeat enemies, so there is no such thing as cheating. And in this way, he will be able to save more and more friends. She is sure that her master and her sister would say the same thing. Shinagami is quite excited about the girl's approval to use Nosferatu, and then turning to his partner, he asks if he can use his help. Nos agrees to provide special guidance, and then he will be able to sleep well. Both young men are excited about each other's happiness. Then Nos begins the guidance by saying that while using his power to bury an enemy, like that time when AI delivered a punch right to a Keiki's stomach, he will need to feel Nosferatu's cells while executing the attack. The protagonist closes his eyes to concentrate on this instruction, and then he manages to feel Nosferatu's cells circulating in his body. When AI exerts force, the muscles seem to spring forth, and the cells respond as well. Then the boy firmly plants his feet on the ground and feels the energy flowing. His legs can experience the sensation, just like his arms that are being flooded with energy. Then he can feel the course of Jin through his body going directly to his fist, and he uses the crushing demon fist towards the car, managing to smash it. That immense power impresses Hikari, who is left speechless. Even Shinagami is surprised by what he has accomplished. The only one who is not surprised is Nosferatu, who is well aware of what his power is capable of. Excited, the two young men celebrate by jumping and shouting with great happiness. Hikari is ecstatic because the boy managed to do it in one day, while it took her 6 months. Shinagami gives all the credit for his success to the guidance of his senior Hikari. He turns to Nos and also thanks him with a smile. Kozuka is convinced that the boy is indeed a monster, as even with much training he did not reach this level. AI and Hikari continue to get along very well, laughing as they train the boy's skills. 2 days later, AI joins the squad and they set off on their mission. We can see several Keiki invading the base, gunfire and bombings everywhere. Inside the arsenal of the 7th Frontline base, many noises can be heard, and the people working in the equipment maintenance area seem ready to fight. One of the men trembles in fear, saying that the place has been invaded and fearing being eaten by Keikis. Hanamori orders them not to think negatively and that they need to show their fighting spirit. But while she speaks, the wall in front of her is destroyed and turns into pieces, and 3 hungry Keiki appear from inside the hole in the wall. Even the brave girl trembles in fear, and the 2 men prepare for the worst. One of the Keiki charges at the poor mechanics. The girl closes her eyes, already anticipating the worst. But 3 silhouettes appear to protect them, and manage to take down the Keiki. One of the silhouettes is AI, who takes off her cloak and asks if Hanamori is okay. Now calmer, the pink-haired girl wants to know what happened at the base. Shinagami says that the Keiki that attacked Base 7 were caught by the guerrilla squad, just like what happened when she was saved from the imminent attack of the hungry Keiki. The other forces, knowing that the containment zone was taken by humans, returned to reclaim it. Thus, the recovery unit of the containment zone attacked when the main enemy forces were far away. This impresses Hanamori, who is analyzing the situation. AI's team made a detour and avoided the enemy attack on Base 7 by going around it. He shows the map so the girl can better understand the plans. This leaves Hanamori a bit disappointed because more than 70% of the guards were eliminated, and it also caused a confusion and a very messy situation. Thanks to the guards who sacrificed themselves, the non-combatants in the base are safe. But this is an important facility, so they didn't want to give up completely. Closing her eyes, the girl understands that the superiors are still quite lenient. She asks why the troops are there and not defending the containment zone. Shinagami explains that they are the guerrilla squad. The containment zone will be defended by soldiers from other bases, and then they will launch a surprise attack. Knowing this leaves Hanamori surprised and somewhat shocked. She questions if that would be all there is to it. But Commander Kyuden arrives and tells her that this is indeed the idea. Smiling, he asks if the weapon he requested is ready. The doors of the arsenal at the 7th Frontline base are open, letting in light. Shintani and Ishida are there, observing their new equipment. Koyama watches all of this, and says they got some really cool new toys. But very seriously, Ishida responds that they are not toys. Shintani asks if Koyama's plan is to take off with them, but the boy denies it, saying that this blatant move only signals for them to eliminate him. Angry at his partner's playful attitude, Ishida says that with his skills, he would be defeated anyway. He doesn't let it get to him, and walks away from the two with a smile on his face. Shintani asks him not to worry about it, but Ishida knows he is just trying to calm everyone's nerves, since surely everyone there must be very tense. In another room, sisters Hikari and Satwan are observing their weapons. Satwan holds a kind of spear with a very beautiful shiny tip. Hikari admires her friend's new weapon and is amazed by its beauty. The girl says that her sister's double blades are also very cool. Holding 2 red swords, Hikari smiles. One of them has a cute little charm. The girl is happy with the compliment and gives a big friendly smile. This reminds her of a cute and obedient puppy, and Satwan pets the girl's head. But at that moment, she looks to the side and remembers another subject. A mysterious weapon that is locked in the room, the demon-slaying blade. Hikari comments that this weapon is the pride and joy of Chief Mechanic. Both have tried to handle it before but had little success. It was extremely intense and drained a lot of their red fluid, the ANF. And on top of that, they couldn't spin the blade even once. Satwan starts to criticize Hanamori for making a pointless weapon and doesn't realize she is right there. The pink-haired girl gets furious and sarcastically apologizes for making something amusing. Her presence surprises the sidecut girl, who seems a bit awkward about what she just said. Hanamori and Kane always end up fighting when they cross paths. Interrupting the fight, Ryusei appears and asks the pink-haired girl to leave her alone. The sisters are happy with Kyuden's presence and both greet him. And Ryusei asks if they can let AI try the weapon. Looking at the mysterious weapon, Hanamori repeats the question, still incredulous. The protagonist approaches the large sword, deep in thought. Satom asks if Ryusei didn't tell AI about the sword, but the white-haired man asks her to let him try it for a bit. Everyone around comments, but no one believes he will be able to. Concentrated, the protagonist holds the sword with both hands, ready to unsheath it. And with some ease, he manages to pull the sword from the sheath and observes it. Everyone is impressed by this feat. Hikari is amazed, and Satom even sweated. The protagonist also manages to execute some vertical strikes with the weapon, leaving everyone around speechless and in awe. He can't quite understand, but he knows that this sword seems quite powerful. Excited, Hikari celebrates that he really managed to swing the crouching dragon. The people who are watching from afar approach him, praising him. Hanamori is extremely emotional and unable to hold back her tears, celebrates as well. Ryusei knew that after merging with Keiki, the concentration of ANF in Shinagami's body would be high. The boy is super enthusiastic and happy with everyone's compliments, and this is totally beyond what the captain imagined. We can see Kuzui stretched out on the ground, with his arms and legs spread wide. Feeling very cold, he has no idea where he is. He remembers saying goodbye to Shinagami and walking a bit. But something surprised him along the way, and after that, he can't remember anything else. He doesn't know if he was devoured or captured. A boy with horns appears accompanied by a keiki and orders him to wake up. Kuzui wonders who that is. He questions if it's some little demon. The boy says he has some questions to ask him, and won't kill him for now. He approaches Kuzui's arm and casts a type of magic. The magic begins to take over the area. Some clouds appear. Kuzui's arm starts to freeze instantly. Extremely scared, the boy with the pompadour wonders who this guy is that froze his arm. And with a sinister look, the demon asks him not to die so easily. Kuzui realizes that this guy is a humanoid keiki and that he has encountered a lord. Back at the base, everything seems calm despite still not being very organized. Shinagami becomes worried upon learning that his colleague Kuzui has not shown up. Asakawa mentions that she hasn't received any news about him. AI is quite anxious and starts to wonder if Kuzui is still alive. The girl asks him to focus on the mission since they cannot lose the containment zone again. The protagonist agrees and poses politely in front of his superior. She questions whether this is the guerrilla squad carefully cultivated by Sakurai. The superiors are using Base 7 as bait for redemption. It is expected that some humanoids will be involved in the next battle, which could make everything more difficult. She, as the temporary commander of Base 7, is counting on everyone from the squad. Shinagami salutes respectfully and agrees with his superior. He withdraws and makes his way back to his duties. Asakawa thinks that she still hasn't gotten used to sending young people into a dead end. The squad is facing a disabled personnel transport armored vehicle. Ryusei explains that a katana combines the advantages of a weapon, a blade, and an axe. He asks Shinagami to use it as he used the baton earlier. The captain explains that it is necessary to get accustomed to the weight and length of the weapon. Explaining a bit more about the crouching dragon, he also asks if the boy has learned the special punch. As soon as he confirms that he has learned, Ryusei smiles and says it's not bad to have learned so quickly. The punch he learned is not just for hand-to-hand combat but can also be used with weapons. Since he has learned to use Jin, he can channel its power from his body to his weapon. As an example, he first demonstrates a normal strike on the destroyed vehicle. Then he shows how a strike using his Jin looks. With just a swing of the sword, he manages to split the vehicle in half. Incredibly, a vehicle designed to withstand bullets was split in half with a baton. If Shinagami swings his weapon like a demon-smashing fist, he will be using Jin and FA. It is a power that can accumulate over weaponry and armor that breaks limits. Even having learned the Kyuden style, the protagonist is still shocked by the power of his master. Proudly, Ryusei looks at his pupil with a smile on his face. He points to the tip of his baton with his finger. If he channels the Jin at the tip of the weapon, like with the sword, he will be able to fight alone. This technique is the Great Katana Level 2. The sisters watch the teachings, each having a different opinion about it. Before the operation begins, Hikari will teach him. Ryusei asks if Shinagami is ready, and very determined, the protagonist confirms that he will succeed. After a few minutes, the girl praises AI and says he did very well in training. Unfortunately, he still hasn't managed to split the vehicle in half like Kyuden did. But still, he thanks Hikari for her time and says goodbye to her. Kozuka approaches the boy and says that he and the girl are quite close. Koyama also appears and comments that he is indeed fearless. Shinagami sees his colleagues and says that Hikari has been talking a lot about them lately. And then he asks what Kozuka just said about him and Hikari. Koyama says that maybe he misunderstood, as he thought it was something interesting. And the dark-haired man asks if AI has a girlfriend and that he loves this kind of gossip. A bit flustered, the protagonist repeatedly answers that he does not. And at that moment, the nosy Nosferatu appears talking about the medical girl. This makes Shinagami even more embarrassed, and Kozuka is surprised to see the Demon King speaking. Koyama says he has heard of Asuka and that everyone talks about the cute medical student. She always takes the lead in body recovery operations and is known as Angel in Hell. Nosferatu adds that she resembles AI quite a bit, and they make an interesting pair. The two colleagues become interested in this topic, and the protagonist is mortified. Koyama explains that if he has someone like that, he shouldn't be playing around, and the dark-haired man adds that for Asuka, he needs to survive. He finishes by saying that he needs to return to them, no matter what happens. Forgetting his embarrassment, the determined AI responds that he will do that. They return to talking about Asuka and ask how things are going, but AI tries to explain that it's not as they think. Feeling welcomed, he thinks that this time everyone in the unit needs to survive. Ryusei shouts asking his subordinates if everyone is ready. The guerrilla squad is all gathered, and they respond to their master. AI is in uniform, prepared for his next challenging battle. Kyuden says that they need to properly thank the guys who destroyed their base. After a period of withdrawal from the attack on Base 7 by the Keiki, a digital map appears, and we can see the advance of the combat forces. The last group of Keikis noticed something and began to advance. The gathered Keiki seem to be investigating the area. Meanwhile, the guerrilla squad is defeating other monsters, all of whom also perished at the hands of the warriors. Caught by surprise, the Keiki are suffering one by one from the squad strikes. One of the blows manages to split the monster in half right down the middle. The monsters there are caught off guard, being attacked and eliminated without even realizing where the attacks are coming from. Some cannot even perceive who executed the attacks, being split in half like a simple sandwich. Like a festival of cuts, blows come from all sides, slicing pieces off all the enemies. But they cannot see their enemies who are camouflaged, trying to counter with their fireballs. AI is among the camouflaged warriors, performing all the moves she learned in training. And with skill, the warrior manages to deflect all the fireballs with his sword. Hikari is also among the transparent warriors. The Keiki finally notice the enemy's approach. But before they can take any action, many bullets hit their bodies. The remaining Keikis are stunned to see their fallen companions without even knowing where the shots came from. They look around and cannot perceive the enemy to counterattack. And then the leader instructs them not to rely on sight but to use their other senses. All the monsters then close their eyes and concentrate deeply. With this, they manage to notice some shadows on the battlefield. Hikari thinks it is a wise decision to leap over the monsters, and she does so. But even being a brave and determined girl, she is only at the level of the Keiki minions. And even though she managed to split one of the monsters in half, others appear running in her direction, ready to take revenge. Shinagami realizes that Hikari is cornered and shouts her name. Even with the leader's warnings, the Keiki were still prepared for an ambush. The girl slices through all the enemies she can with her two swords. After completing her violent masterpiece, the girl sheathes her swords. AI approaches her friend and comments that she is really very strong. Hikari points out that AI is wonderful because she is managing to wield the great sword now. The memory of Ryusei saying that if he mastered the sword, he could handle things alone comes to mind. Hikari's cuts are clean, while AI's are more like tearing flesh. The girl praises the protagonist's skills again and tells them to keep going. There are at least 10 times more Keiki than humans on the battlefield. Shinagami looks back, quite surprised, and the soldiers of the guerrilla squad are no longer camouflaged. Kozuka explains that the invisibility time of the camouflage does not last long, and unfortunately, there are still many monsters left to defeat. Noba shouts, ordering everyone to follow Shinagami and Hikari. All the soldiers follow the vice-captain's orders. Hikari again puts on a display of skills, cutting her enemies with her dual blades. Hikari's weapons do not have the needles that suck the red fluid from the user, but instead, they have greater wiring and more strength and stability. The secret lies in the grip of the sword because inside it, there is a fluid collection needle injecting ANF from the body into the sheath. This way, every time she releases the sword, it restores a bit of its edge. When designing and manufacturing weaponry, balancing power and durability is incredibly difficult. but Hanamori successfully designed the katana and the functions separately in the blade and the sheath. Although it needs to be sharpened from time to time, it can be called the strongest one-handed weapon. And the person who can wield it is the greatest swordsman of all time, Hikari Shina. A keiki stares at her, almost taking an unsafe distance. Calmly, the girl holds her sword that is sheathed, and upon drawing it, she strikes the monster with the hilt of the sword, causing an injury to it. It's as if an electric energy passed from the sword to the creature's arm. It flies backward with all the momentum, suffering the consequences of the blow. The impact is so strong that it ends up doing a somersault in the air and landing face first on the ground. It is a demonstration of a swordsman perfectly using the Kyuden style with the power of Jin. She uses her dual blades with lightning speed to bury the keiki one by one. The girl controls not only her Jin but also that of the opponent. With this, she manages to make their bodies collapse and throw them away. The keiki execute a coordinated attack in a fan shape with a time delay. Hikari has less time to sharpen her sword and may have put everyone at risk. She questions whether she should retreat. The girl who needed to withdraw, in less than a second of thought and decision. She was able to know what to do just by observing AI's movements. Looking at the protagonist, she begins to understand then that she managed to correctly understand her pupil's intentions. Shinagami then swings his sword forcefully with both hands. He made this decision based on Hikari's ability to read Jin. And with that, he was able to perform the Great Sword LVL2 skill with mastery. The girl is impressed by AI's skill growth rate. Due to a naturally weak constitution, AI has not been able to show her potential until now. AI became superhuman by merging with Keiki and learning the most powerful martial arts in the world. Ryusei watches the horizon with an excited smile on his face. Many destroyed monster bodies are scattered on the ground, and a group approaches. AI continues battling the Keiki with all her strength and skill. Proudly, Ryusei confirms that everything is going well so far. He draws his axe, sending a mental message to Shinagami, saying that now the one-man guerrilla team is departing. As they face the Keiki, the protagonist asks if the captain is fighting alone. Hikari tells that her master is even stronger when working alone. Kozuka adds that when it comes to commanding, Shinagami is more capable. Koyama mentions that the captain's name is written as bait but read as Kyuden. Shinagami is surprised to see some explosive fireballs falling from the sky. He can even shoot in a rain of bullets, and there are many explosions in the sky. Shintani and Ishida use their jetpacks to fly towards the fireballs. With mastery, they manage to dodge the projectiles and advance towards the enemies. However, a flying keiki tries to attack Ishida from behind, but is surprised by a spear that pierces its head. The spear belongs to Satwan, who uses her keiki spear cherry blossom attack. With sarcasm, she asks if he can handle this since he was the best student. The boy says he had already seen both the flying keiki and her approaching. Angrily, the girl then asks if he used her intentionally, and while preparing his weapon, he says it was kind of like that. This makes the girl furious, and she starts to throw a tantrum in the middle of the fight. But her battle companion is serious while she is furious. He calls for Shinagami, who is nearby. It's dangerous ahead, and he asks the protagonist to please cover Kane since everyone is counting on him. AI confirms the orders and continues on her way. Shintani also asks Hikari if her sword will be able to handle everything, and she confirms. The squad then splits up to cover their missions. There are no signs of any losses even though they are surrounded by enemies. Not a trace of inattention or unpreparedness during the battles. When in a position of advantage, it's easy to let one's guard down. One of the enemies is sharp, alert, watching everything around. Shinagami realizes that this enemy is aiming at the girl. He shouts for Kane to be careful. She is a bit ahead of him. The girl realizes too late and was about to be hit, but he manages to push her in time, preventing a lightning strike from hitting her. AI gained these battle understandings before becoming the Reaper. The lightning was strong enough to obliterate the upper part of a keiki's body, and before them appears the familiar flying keiki with multiple arms. It is the same species from the battle to claim the containment zone. Worried, Shinagami quickly turns to Kane. The girl is performing a skilled backflip. She firmly plants her feet on the ground as she finishes the jump. Cursing the monster, she prepares a strike using her Jin and her powerful spear. And with all her strength, she throws the spear forward, even leaving a trail behind. The weapon hits directly in the monster's mouth and exits through its abdomen. In addition to hitting it, it also causes an internal explosion that manages to destroy parts of its body. Making an obscene gesture with her finger, she boasts about having executed the strike. That keiki, which they had so much trouble defeating, the girl managed to take down with just one blow. Shintani descends a bit from his flight to deliver the spear that came through. With his skeletal robotic arm, he tosses the weapon to the girl. She says she saw that he flew to retrieve the weapon she threw and comments on it. The boy explains that he didn't go to fetch it. He managed to catch it in midair, and asks if that wasn't what she wanted. With a confident look, the boy smiles at Kane, and she returns the smile in the same way, solidifying their partnership. The fact that Shintani caught the weapon midair leaves Shinagami astonished by the strength of the two. Kane also thanks the protagonist, saying that thanks to him, they are safe, and she gives him the same proud partnership smile. This makes him super excited, and he feels recognized for his heroism. But Shintani needs to interrupt this moment, telling them to pay attention. In the distance, a different and enormous creature can be seen. It looks like a keiki but much larger and equipped with thick armor. The boy warns that this is a humanoid keiki. Shinagami is incredulous as he finally lays his eyes on such a powerful enemy. The humanoid keiki is right in front, still facing away from the squad. Shinagami still can't believe what he sees. He knows the reputation these enemies have. When the squad began the surprise attack from the rear, other defense squads from various bases also formed teams to confront the keiki commander. Due to the sacrifice and cover of the main force, the elite unit managed to reach the humanoid keiki. The soldiers fire without fear and manage to spot the humanoid keiki but do not falter. However, the gigantic enemy possesses a power that few are prepared to handle. He can form stone barriers in front of him, blocking the soldiers' shots. And without any effort, he can negate all the advances of his enemies. This surprises the fighters who no longer have many means to deal with him. Several stones begin to rise from the ground, forming craters on the battlefield. The humanoid keiki starts to approach the squad more and more. He uses his gigantic, rigid arms to advance faster towards them, and his minions, the smaller keiki, also head towards the battle. Switching to a defensive formation, the soldiers stay united. They form a circle to try to defend against the monster's attack. One of the men warns that they will launch their fireballs, then asks them to switch to shotguns. Asking them to spread out and shoot freely to evade, the soldier grabs his weapon. Meanwhile, the fireballs begin to head directly towards the men, and to avoid being hit, the soldiers shoot at them, creating explosions. Now they are counting ammunition to assess the situation. Everyone focuses on seeing how many bullets are left of each type of weapon. But while they are focused on this, a soldier notices something. At that moment, the humanoid keiki begins to approach them even more. The large monster looks around as if searching for something. He realizes that the keiki around him are being cut down one by one. Wondering what could be so strong, the soldier shouts in confusion, and two somewhat transparent silhouettes can be seen using their swords against the keiki. The worried soldier seems to have identified the Reaper among the silhouettes, and the warrior's transparent camouflage begins to reveal who is behind the attacks. Visible, the hero continues to use his great sword to defeat all the monsters there. He is satisfied with the strength of his allied guards, and he intends to join forces with them to attack the leader of the enemies. The guerrilla squad is also getting closer. Adjusting his outfit, he looks at his partner and thinks that he should team up with her. She does the same, and he knows that this way they could surpass the stone shield. The two begin their attacks in a coordinated manner with rhythmic steps. But something happens that catches the girl's attention. Kane also notices and makes an anxious expression. Finally, Shinagami also realizes and seems worried. Then he shouts for his colleagues to move back about 10 meters. The humanoid keiki begins to scream, and lines that resemble a labyrinth form on the ground beneath him. Some stones start to rise from the ground, breaking the soil below them. And to the misfortune of some soldiers, the stones manage to pierce their bellies. This phenomenon begins to advance towards the guerrilla squad. Hikari ends up getting hit on the side of her belly. Kane is also hit but lightly on her leg. The girls believe that to anticipate an attack of this level, it could only be AI, and the protagonist is strategically positioned among some stone spikes. He managed to dodge thanks to Nosa's detection, which resurfaced for a moment. The stone spikes are pulled back into the ground. Nosferatu wakes up and asks the boy what is happening, and what smells so bad. He recognizes this smell as being from some minion of the gluttonous demon. The humanoid keiki remains silent, merely looking in the direction of the heroes. But a sinister aura can be felt behind him, as if he were part of something greater. The smell is much stronger than that of the henchmen they encountered earlier. Nosferatu questions whether this is a knight serving the Lord. Looking at his partner, AI asks what it means to be a knight. The humanoid keiki begins to say that this smell would belong to a member of the same clan from another territory. He introduces himself as Greem, a loyal servant of the ice demon, Zordon, who rules this land. Shinagami is impressed to see that this keiki can communicate. The Demon King asks why there is so much surprise when it is not the first time he has seen a high-level keiki. The protagonist agrees with a smile, and says that he has the best keiki by his side as reinforcement. Nosferatu confirms and says that these knights are just child's play. Greem says he wants to ask them a few questions. Shinagami quickly thinks that now that the enemy is stationary, they should take advantage of the opportunity. The big monster asks why Nosferatu fused with the human, who he is, and why he didn't devour him. The Demon King seems somewhat disappointed with these questions. Laughing, he sarcastically asks who the clumsy one was that created this piece of trash. and after finishing his laughter, he says he can only imagine the fool who made him. Grimm says that if he insults his master, he will get what he deserves. Nosferatu mocks the way he refers to his master, and asks him to stop making jokes. Then he decides to introduce himself, and says that if he knows what is good for him, he should kneel. The knight seems to have heard of him, and is a bit incredulous about the information. He widens his sinister eyes and his mouth full of sharp teeth. Grimm adds that despite being hard to believe, he found a king in a place like this. The one who restricted humans as sustenance, leaving countless keiki hungry and resentful of the clan. After being defeated by Belsain, he did not die honorably but fled the royal city to hide. And now he is parasitizing a human to cling to life. This is Nosa's reputation. The knight closes his eyes, completely disgusted with what he knows about the Demon King. And then, upon opening his eyes again, he says he will offer the king his final pity. Shinigami confronts Grimm's words, saying he knows nothing about his partner. This attitude surprises Nos, who looks attentively at his host. The humanoid keiki repeats the word AI pronounced partner. Shinigami adds that Nos often thinks too highly of himself, but now he is his partner. This makes Nosferatu burst into laughter, saying that AI is very arrogant. And after finishing his laughter, he becomes serious and asks the hero to take down the monster, using any means necessary. The protagonist asks if this is allowed since that guy is also a noble like him. But Nos says that since he has the lineage of Belsain, he does not need to be saved. The conversation of the noble keiki is interrupted by the sound of gunfire on the battlefield. The signal to resume the battle is the 4 shots from the sniper, and the special ability to lift stones from the ground activated by Grimm. He easily protects himself from the shots with rock shields forming around him. Shinigami asks everyone to pay attention to the ground and get out of the way. The ground around the humanoid keiki begins to give way with several cracks. The more distracted soldiers end up falling into these fissures. And just as they open, the fissures suddenly close, trapping the people who fell there. The guerrilla squad warriors are surprised by the wide reach of the attack. The vice captain warns that this attack has a range of 100 meters, and the bullets can hit from the other side. Everyone then starts shooting their weapons in the direction pointed by the man. But Grimm is clever and manages to defend himself well at the moment by raising his shields. He observes his adversaries from behind the rocks, and then he begins to unleash his attacks that pierce the shields heading towards the heroes. Kozuka asks what those bullets that look like drills are. The stone bullets begin to get close to the soldiers, who quickly prepare. These stones are much heavier than they appear, and one after another, they seem to get heavier. And besides the weight, they are also coming in large quantities. Hikari realizes that even with AI and everyone together, it is very likely they will be overwhelmed. The protagonist begins to imitate the girl's techniques and cuts the incoming projectiles. She is impressed to see him doing this, mimicking her double blade technique. With the power of the suit combined with Nos, even the heaviest sword feels like bamboo. And easily, the boy manages to deliver spinning sword strikes, cutting through the stones. The trajectory of the cuts changed from straight to circular. This is the essence of the Kyuden sword style. Satom wonders if AI has managed to learn this even without Hikari needing to teach. Shinigami's martial sense is as good as hers, or perhaps even stronger. As if he could multiply, the protagonist manages to break all the projectiles. Taking a deep breath, he decides it's time to turn defense into offense. Grimm notices that the boy is managing to block his attacks, so he decides to change his approach and stretches out his stone arm. The horn located on top of his head begins to make a different noise. Shinigami recognizes this sound as the sonic waves of the keiki, and a population of monsters hears their master's call to join the battle. AI questions whether they should have their subordinates join the attack. The vice captain orders them to engage in battle and ignore the stone bullets. Then the weaker soldiers deal with the minions while the squad charges at the knight. With this movement, the hero manages to think of a plan and believes they can win. Shinigami realizes that the enemy leader is using sonic wave communication. This causes all the minions to approach rapidly. Koyama ends up getting bitten on the arm by one of the enemies. Feeling a lot of pain, he looks at the freshly opened wound. The squad is suffering some damage on the battlefield even while fighting bravely. Many explosive fireballs begin to fly towards the heroes. Shintani shouts for them to shoot at the fireballs and destroy them. Meanwhile, yet another herd of various monsters approaches relentlessly. The squad members can't help but feel anxious. After repeated contact, AI begins to understand the communication of the keiki. The minions are attentive to all the orders they receive through these waves. The protagonist prepares and begins to perform a communication interference strike. He then starts to hear the waves coming from Grimm just as he does with Jean. Focusing, he manages to resonate with the power of Nos and releases the communication sound wave. And then, holding the hilt of his sword, he manages to emit more powerful waves. The keiki begin to get confused by this communication interference, and the protagonist then gains control over the minions. They start to fight among themselves, one biting the other. In addition to bites and scratches, they also launch fireballs at their own allies. The battlefield changes completely from one moment to the next. Kozuka and Koyama are confused, not quite understanding what is happening. Shintani believes they have gone crazy, but then he realizes that in addition to attacking each other, they are also attacking their leader. Not feeling much impact from the blows, Green wonders what is happening. Chaos reigns among his subordinates, and an explosion occurs right in front. This distracts the knight, and Hikari and Sadome take advantage of the opening. The girl with the side cut uses her Kyuden-style breaking spear move and throws her spear, while Hikari focuses on using the Kyuden-style ground shrinkage. And in a sudden and agile movement, she disappears quickly. The girl is so fast that she manages to fly along with Sadome's spear towards the monster. This type of decisive attack is allowed in Kyuden's guerrilla squad. The girl advances with the weapon towards the boss being attacked by his minions. The squad's unique ability is the instinct for victory perfected through countless battles. It is the prerequisite for executing so many high-risk ambushes. Green notices the risky strike but is impressed. The spear approaches the monster with all its speed. Green only notices the spear when it is already very close to his body, and he is hit by it, which shatters his left arm into pieces. But he is surprised because that is just a distraction. The real attack comes, and it is Hikari preparing her blades for the strike. No one can be faster than her in attacks at this distance, and she will not waste the opportunity. With both hands, she delivers sword strikes to the villain's body with all her power. A surprise attack with double coverage was definitely the right decision, but Hikari's swords cannot withstand the impact and break into several pieces. And the enemy, despite being injured, is still standing and begins to prepare a strike. Through the cuts she made on him, the girl realizes that the enemy is not made of stone but perhaps made of diamonds. And in any case, against a keiki as hard as diamond, no blade will be sufficient. One can see a different blue glow in the cut on Green's body. The attack only left a shallow mark, but Hikari does not give up and believes there is still a chance. She picks up her two broken swords and aims at the crack, concentrating her gene. The stubborn swordsman does not want to miss the opportunity, but Keiki's strike is executed. And it is too late now. The girl is caught off guard and very focused on her own attack. Hikari's instincts tell her that she is going to die, and moments with AI flash through her mind. She is struck by memories of her time with him in her final seconds. The great sword combines the reach of a weapon, the edge of a sword, and the weight of an axe. Before Green's hand could reach Hikari's face, a blade strikes him. It is AI's Kyuden style, ground shrinkage, arriving with all its speed. He executed this move unconsciously after seeing it only twice, managing to sever the enemy's hand with just a swing of the sword. Hikari's eyes shine, and she is amazed by her friend's performance. The monster can hardly believe what has happened. He looks at what remains of his arm, but Shinagami is not finished yet and prepares his next move, Steel's sword. And with the great sword LVL3, he manages to split the powerful Keiki leader in half. Ryusei smirks slyly and asks who is next. Two stone Keiki stare at him, and he is wielding his powerful axe. He kicks a decapitated stone Keiki's head while mocking them. Diamonds are truly the worst enemy of a weapon, he says as he puts his hand in his pocket. The remaining Keiki seem worried about facing the captain's powers. One of them trembles as he repeatedly asks why. The other shouts that the Keiki phenomenon cannot be activated, and Ryusei finishes by saying it is because he did not allow it. Slowly, he approaches the two enemies nonchalantly. He comments that the two manipulate the ANF flowing on the ground, and Jean can do something similar. Waves resembling an optical illusion appear beneath him. With the range that Jean provides, the enemy's waves are completely ineffective. But this movement can only be performed if there is no one nearby because normal people would explode. The Keiki calls Ryusei a monster as he gets closer and closer to them. The shorter one says that in that case, they will fight up close. However, before he can make any move, he is caught off guard, and Ryusei is already standing on his neck with the axe pressed against him. The man moved in the blink of an eye. The enemy didn't even notice. Like swatting a fly, the Keiki begins to flail his arms, but Kyuden has already descended from there. And before he even realizes he has been defeated, the Keiki sees a line dividing him. He is split into two equal halves and falls to the ground, defeated. Ryusei asks if there are a total of 4 like him, and one of them seems to have encountered the squad, and only 3 dared to face Kyuden, as if asking for trouble. But the Keiki assumes that even if all 4 had come, the result would be the same. Laughing, the man says it seems he has a reputation among the Keiki. The monster says they will keep him busy while the other deals with his friends. As he advances, Kyuden already points his axe in his direction, and with just one hand, he lifts the weapon, causing the Keiki to lose his balance. Like in a magical attack, the enemy floats in the air and suffers the consequences of multiple cuts. Several small stones fall onto the battlefield like a victory shower for Ryusei. He remembers the enemy's last words, that he is the only one capable of dealing with a high-ranking keiki. Putting his hand in his pocket, he looks at the horizon, smiling and thoughtful, and he completes his reflection by saying that this is far from being true. Far away, in another battlefield, a crowd can be seen. AI is finishing his final blow on the diamond keiki. He is split in half with a clean, linear cut. His heavy body falls to the ground with a loud noise, raising dust. Those movements cost the protagonist a lot of energy, and he is panting. Despite being cut in half, he can still speak and admits he has been defeated. Nosferatu appears and says they were foolish to divide their forces. One half of Grimm addresses the Demon King very politely, unlike before. The demon sighs and says it is better to tell him a truth now. He knows that many keiki are dissatisfied with the food rationing, but it is necessary to contain resources. If he did not implement this kind of control, they would devour all the humans, and there would be none left. He explains that as a commoner with little noble insight, he would not understand. But when the third generation of kings was born, resource rationing was adopted as a doctrine, and he ends his reasoning by asking who he thinks instructed the master to form a farm of humans. Grimm is impressed and asks if it was really Nosferatu who gave the idea. If he thinks Belsain is a great revolutionary, he should think again. He merely incites. And Nos asks what Belsain did after taking power. The rupture of cooperation and communication between the regions led to human counterattacks. And it is foolish to try to rush and take the farms of humans with combat power. With an air of superiority, he looks at the defeated keiki with disdain. Nos completes by saying that they took the wrong path, unfortunately. Almost closing his eyes, Grimm says he is very sorry and apologizes. Nosferatu tells him to sleep, and that he was a brave warrior, and that he was ignorant, but not incapable. But Nosferatu's monologue is interrupted when AI starts to feel pain and groan. He falls hard to the ground, and Hikari runs over, worried, asking if he is okay. The demon says he can't handle this because his brain has worked too hard with the waves of communication. Nos says that despite being stubborn and reckless, AI did very well and deserves to sleep now. The demon disappears from the protagonist's hand, and he lies there exhausted on the ground. Sometime later, Shinigami wakes up with a start, lying in a hospital bed. Outside, a crowd is cheering for the hero's deeds. One can see flags and a large parade. There are gigantic posters with his photo holding his sword and weapon. Women, men, children, and the elderly shout his name while holding signs with encouraging messages. He gets up to look out the window and hears his name being called. Everyone shouts hero. A man with very good vision spots him from the building's window and points, and everyone recognizes him, getting super excited to see him, celebrating and shouting his name. They call him the savior of the allies and repeat AI's name over and over. The boy feels a bit awkward, not quite understanding what is happening. The newest hope of humans, AI, is glorified by the population. Trembling, our protagonist wonders what those people are doing. A voice surprises the boy, saying that everyone is there to praise him. It is Sakurai's voice, accompanied by Asuka, who as always asks if the boy is okay. The girl grabs AI's arm, asking if he has any injuries or discomfort. She tells him that he has been sleeping for a week, which worries the hero. Shinigami anxiously asks Sakurai what is happening. The man closes his eyes and says it might be better for him to sit down first, and with a friendly smile, he invites him for a cup of tea. In the capital of Western Europe, people needed heroes, so AI was chosen. The man asks if promoting him as a model for everyone is considered a problem. Shinigami ignores his question and simply asks if everyone in his squad is okay. Ayato confirms, saying that there are some who got hurt, but no one is in danger. AI is happy about this, and says he still doesn't consider himself a hero, but if it was everyone's choice, he will obey, since he defeated the humanoid keiki with that sensational blow. The defense operation of the containment zone was a success, and they managed to clear the area of enemies. The enemies lost 4 humanoid keiki, so their numbers decreased significantly. But Graham's creator, Lord Frost Giant Zordon, has not yet appeared. If they don't defeat the Lord, all the effort is meaningless, as the number of enemies will continue to grow. Ayato has an idea of where he is and intends to send a troop. He wants AI to participate. Immediately, the boy stands up, saluting, ready for any battle. Nosferatu asks if Sakurai knows that he might be hiding in the snowy mountains. With an inviting smile, the man says that if Majesty Nosferatu helps, it would be great. But the demon declines and says he wouldn't help someone as suspicious as him. The man takes this distrust well but comments that he was harsh in his remark. AI tries to convince Nos to combine his knowledge with Sakurai's to find the Lord. But the king explains that it would still be uncertain because he is not in his best form. He adds that he could even monitor the stars if he wanted to. AI's body is very fragile. He used a bit of power in the communication waves and was out for a week. Displeased, the boy says he would be dead if it weren't for his body. This irritates Nos greatly, and he asks him to repeat that. Asuka decides to interrupt the discussion between the two before hostility worsens. Raising her hands, she shouts for them not to fight. Sakurai realizes that the boy's relationship with Keiki is difficult, but both listen to Asuka. With a somewhat sinister air, he asks Shinagami what it feels like to be dead. This strange question causes discomfort for both AI and Nos. Ayato points out that the more the boy dies, the stronger he becomes, like a Keiki. He questions whether soon Shinagami's body will be taken over by the immortal ghost. Asuka covers her mouth in shock at this indiscreet question. Humanoid Keikis or high-level Keikis possess special abilities. Nos is consuming a bit of the boy every time he uses his abilities and wakes up. Ayato has a fearsome look, and the others in the room fall into absolute silence. The man's expression is terrifying, and he asks if this feeling isn't delicious. All this chatter leaves Nosferatu enraged, and he asks if Sakurai wants to die. But the man insists, and says that he still hasn't answered his question. Nos explains that there is indeed a source of nourishment that can only be drawn from a person's last moments. In his mind, he thinks that now, this doesn't seem so delicious. The protagonist stares at his partner with a calm demeanor. To conclude, the king says he won't tell Sakurai what it tastes like. Ayato gives a mischievous smile and thinks that this must be his answer. And then he laughs, apologizing for all his rudeness. Shinagami asks if Nos is going to end up eating him. The king asks what happens if he says yes. With a serious voice, the hero replies that there is no way that will happen. That if he can wait until he defeats all the Keiki on Earth, then maybe. Worried, Asuka asks Nos not to eat everything and to leave at least half of AI. Astonished, the boy says that there's no such thing as leaving half. He's not a taiyaki. Keeping her good humor, she says he would be a bean flavor and asks if he accepts becoming a tail of taiyaki. Nosferatu starts laughing at the situation and asks them not to worry because he won't eat him now. He explains that AI's body will be his someday, but it will still take some time, since they made a pact to defeat Belsane. Until then, he will take care of the boy. But Shinagami says he believes he is the one taking care of the Demon King. The two then start arguing again about who saved whom more times. Asuka just watches, and Sakurai sips his tea while the two keep fighting. But finally, she steps in between them and asks again for them to stop this. This catches Ayato's attention again, as the two really listen to and obey Asuka. He believes that it is not Shinagami's body that is being held hostage, but Nosa's mind and heart. And with a mischievous smile, he wonders if Nosferatu realizes what is happening. In a cell, the Demon Lord asks if there is still any breath left. Kazuya is tied up and badly injured. He begs him to stop as he has already told everything he knows. The Lord's finger forms a sharp ice needle. He uses it to stab the poor prisoner's chest, who screams incessantly. Feeling agonizing pain, Kazuya continues to scream and suffer. When the Keiki pulls the needle out of him, he looks like he might vomit. The sadistic villain hurts him carefully so that he doesn't lose his life just yet. He is injuring the boy and freezing the wounds to heal them, over and over again. Kazuya pleads for him to stop, and says he already mentioned that AI Shinagami is who he should seek. He adds that he knows the protagonist's weaknesses and can help him reach him. But the merciless Lord Keiki tells him to shut up and uses his icy needle to hurt him again. Kazuya screams in pain. Now his hands are very injured. With a sadistic look, he asks if human fingers are more sensitive to pain, and he presses the ice needle right where he has already hurt the boy with the pompadour. The villain says he can only hear him scream and doesn't understand what he is saying. Kazuya justifies that he is feeling a lot of pain, real pain. While laughing, Zordon tells him to keep crying because soon he will be part of his body. He starts reflecting on when everything began to go wrong and cries out for someone to come save him. Back in the capital, everything seems peaceful for now. Our protagonist is dressed formally and receiving a beautiful medal. He has been promoted to second lieutenant in a special promotion and salutes. Everyone greets the new hero of the Allied Human Forces. So many people having high expectations of AI makes him nervous. Persevering, the boy wants Nos and his companions to help him bring victory to the humans. In the intelligence office of the Abani Regiment of the Western Central Army, Ayato wants to know AI's location. He is with the maintenance team heading to the meeting point with the new equipment. He also asks if the soldier knows where Kazuya is. Before the decisive battle with the flyer, Kazuya had an important device. That was a body-embedded amplification device. The object would blend with ANF and make it harder for the Keiki to detect him, but it would be able to send information back to the base through those signals. Even if there are other soldiers with transmitters, only Kazuya reached the destination. Smiling, the man confirms that this is the right location. They are preparing a visit to the territory of the frost giant Jordan. A soldier observes the perimeter with his binoculars. It is the Abani platoon, which is in the Snowy Mountains, the third reconnaissance base. Visibility is quite complicated, and there is snow everywhere. They are surprised by a flying enemy that approaches them. The Keiki charges at them with its mouth open, ready to attack. But before it can complete its attack, a spear pierces its jaw. It is thrown back, leaving the soldiers safe for now. A semi-transparent silhouette appears, pulling the spear from the creature's head. The soldiers, frightened, wonder what that is and if it is a ghost. The girl's face appears through her camouflage, with a brave look. Both are still surprised by such a display of strength, but the girl gives no explanation and simply turns away and continues on her path. The flying keiki lies incapacitated on the ground. It is no longer a threat. They realize that this person was part of the guerrilla squad and that they are indeed the strongest humans in the world. The camouflage of the warriors disappears. It is the Reaper squad. Snowy Mountains, middle section, the meeting point of the guerrilla team. Hikari asks if Satwan greeted the scouts, but she replies that it is too cold for that. She asks them to stop talking about it because they saved them while passing through, and that's enough. Koyama laughs and says that's why they are called the Reaper squad, and Hikari says she likes having the same name as AI. This makes all her friends there look at her worriedly. The girl does not understand the reason for such concern and asks what the problem is. They believe she is romantically interested in Shirogane and ask Kane. For Hikari, this topic is quite strange, and she is still very confused. Irritated, Kane changes the subject and asks how long they will have to stay in this freezing place. They ask Ishida how the new armor is. He is a bit further ahead. Looking at his watch, he says he is arriving just in time. A flying transport begins to make noise and approaches the soldiers. The vehicle is also using transparency camouflage. They all have shining eyes upon seeing this technology. The vehicle is the floating armored transporter Yangyan, which is gigantic. A small door opens, and someone apologizes for the delay. It is Shinagami, who waves to his companions with a big smile on his face. With a confident smile, he invites them to attack and defend Jordan. Asakawa introduces herself with a salute. She is on the Kajiro Bridge. Ryusei greets her, calling her Melissa, and asks if Base 7 is doing well. Angry, she asks him to call her captain because that is an order, and he needs to respect it. With a sarcastic tone, he says he heard from Sakurai that she couldn't stand sending the young ones to the front lines. She gets quite irritated by the fact that Sakurai is spreading gossip around. Ryusei notices. The captain observes that his subordinates are training even with this unstable weather. AI approaches, asking for permission and wanting to participate in the training as well. He is exactly thinking about the boy when he appears and greets him. But in a sudden and very quick movement, he lunges toward the hero. Shinagami is startled by that unusual behavior. The captain tries to punch the hero, which he defends very well at the exact moment. With both hands still in a defensive position, the protagonist is still surprised. Memories of past battles appear, both from Hikari and Satwan. Shrugging, Ryusei says that this is neutralizing the power. The ability to overcome hardness with softness. He is almost there, as expected. AI's other colleagues approach upon seeing this, and everyone is amazed. The boy scratches his head awkwardly while receiving compliments, and Ryusei thinks about having a successor, that perhaps it no longer matters if the captain is not around to help them. Thinking about the Ice Lord, he says that now what remains is to sort things out with that guy. With a disappointed expression, Melissa says she shouldn't have believed Commander Sakurai. The Kajiro is commanded by Captain Kyuden, who requested to keep the ships with her. She asks that while they are passing through the snowy mountains, they let her take command. Ryusei does not oppose and says that this will certainly be a great help. With a serious face, he asks that in an emergency she prioritize the ship over him. Saluting politely, she confirms and says she will follow these orders. Inside the maintenance room, Chief Hanamori is working on a piece of equipment. Curious, Hikari approaches the girl, and she explains that she can adjust the equipment and make new weapons. She hands the girl new swords to replace the broken ones. Hikari gets excited to see that there are new weapons and that the process was super quick. As she pulls the sword from its sheath, she notices that the blade is different and shinier. It reminds her a lot of the shine that came from the cut she made on Graham. The blacksmith explains that it is a material made from his bones and stones. It is called Setsujetsuka, or snow moon flower. With her eyes brimming with enthusiasm, Hikari says that the swords are very beautiful. She also takes the opportunity to formally apologize for breaking the previous swords. She mentions that if it had been her master handling the swords or someone else, they wouldn't have broken. With a radiant expression, she says that AI would be able to use the swords better than she could. In the ship's operation room, Shintani picks up his new clothes that have arrived. Since this time the enemy deals with ice, the clothes were prepared with anti-freezing material. It seems that the development team conducted experiments with antifreeze glycoproteins to make the clothing. The combat suit also has a reactor for countermeasures in cold weather. Even in a snowstorm, the keiki can create their explosive fireballs. The hood of the suit can also transform into a transparent helmet. Shintani is pleased to see how they are providing such good equipment for the team. They believe it is due to the luck of Shinagami the Reaper, as he is considered the hero of humanity. Joking about the words lucky and Reaper being in the same sentence, The boys laugh. They comment that AI has become a person of great influence but still hasn't realized it. In a gossiping mood, Kondo says that now he is with his childhood friend, the medical student. As the protagonist was about to climb a staircase, Asuka calls out to him. Happy to see the girl, he asks if she doesn't need to help the doctors. She confirms but says she was ordered to follow him and Mr. Nosferatu to take care of them. She was also assigned to the gorilla squad. Nosferatu appears and says that Asuka should pull AI's ear for dying so many times. The hero says he is surprised to hear him say that and asks if he ate something spoiled. Nose responds somewhat curtly, and the boy starts teasing him about his diet. The Demon King says that eating is a privilege of living people, but of the things he has eaten, he really liked the curry, found it delicious, and would like to eat it more often. Excited, Asuka says they can go to the kitchen and help Atsumi cook curry. In the Kajiro kitchen, the two young people join the mission to prepare the dish. The cook asks someone to peel the potatoes for her. With their sharp little arms and AI's knife, the two quickly peel all the potatoes. The cook steps back and mentions that she hasn't seen Hikari yet that day. She always helps in the kitchen, and Atsumi says that Hikari helped her get used to the place when she was a newcomer. Laughing, the girl says that recently Hikari has directed her interests towards someone else. Shinagami wants to know who, but she says she prefers that he asked her himself to respect her. While they cook, Atsumi asks if the others are still doing that thing. She mentions that there is an unprecedented boom in martial arts in the gorilla team. Now we see a snowy field full of soldiers who appear to be training. The boys train, all thinking that they don't want to be outdone by Shinagami. Kyuden and Shintani observe the perimeter with binoculars. The captain asks if he can see. A large castle appears on the horizon, surrounded by sharp ice thorns. Sticking his tongue out, Ryusei says that this is tempting him. The squad defines their objectives: rescue Kazui and eliminate the frost giant. Kazui has the transmitter that is the target of the tracking they are doing. Ice projectiles begin to fly around the area. They are bullets made of ice. The Ice Lord appears and approaches, saying he was waiting for Nos and AI. With a wicked smile, he stares at the protagonist. Shinagami is tense. He stares back at the enemy without flinching. The ice castle is labyrinthine, which can make it difficult for the troops to approach. But Ryusei is confident that they will succeed. The captain will maintain the custom of fighting alone, while the others can face them from behind. Smiling, Kyuden bids farewell to his companions with his confidence at its peak. Everyone salutes to say goodbye to their captain. Back at the castle, the sky is already darkening as night falls. Just stepping into the castle, Kozuka already feels that he could lose his life at any moment. The squad is searching for the Lord while following the tracking signal. They decide to go with Plan B, and Kondo asks if it's a problem for Shinagami. Confident, the protagonist closes his eyes and replies that it's fine. Phase 4 begins, and a sinister shadow appears behind him. By merging with Nos, AI can further enhance his abilities. He uses Keiki phenomenon and creates several shadow bats. The signal interruption indicates that Kazui is either unconscious or no longer among them. The shadow servants controlled by the communication sound wave disperse to search for Kazui. Noba says that the temperature is too low for a prolonged battle. Koyama has heard things about the frost giant that make him very eager to leave. AI finally says that Kazui has been found 300 meters to the northeast, 43 meters above ground. Pointing to a tower nearby, he says that is the location. Satwan points out that this looks very much like a trap, and behind the pillars of the corridor, some diamond keiki suddenly appear. The warriors prepare for combat with the monsters. Knowing there is no other way, Satwan calls Hikari and Shinagami. They must advance and leave the keiki with the rest of the squad, who wave confidently. AI feels a bit upset about leaving his companions, but Hikari urges him to move quickly. However, on the way to the tower, they encounter more diamond keikis blocking the path, which is not enough to stop the heroes, who manage to shatter them effortlessly. Something catches Hikari's attention as she quickly looks back. She protects the protagonist from being hit by a stone projectile. As they ascend the staircase, more enemies appear. Already ready for the next strike, Hikari asks AI to advance and let her handle things from there. But before attacking, the girl looks at him and says that if they survive, she has something to tell him. However, blushing and with a soft voice, she backtracks and says it's better not to. And then she decides to say right there, before the battle begins, that she likes the protagonist. Not understanding, AI says that he likes her too and that he likes everyone in the gorilla squad. She says she will save her anger for later and that he should continue on his path. Embarrassed, she looks at him still blushing, unable to believe that the boy said that. He asks her to survive so they can see each other again and continues climbing the stairs. Moved by such words, she repeats that he will be waiting for her. The diamond keiki talk among themselves that if they are not careful, they might end up dead. With a lively look, the girl says she will unleash her emotions on the monsters, and then she starts to advance towards the three enemies. One of them is incredulous that she thinks she can defeat all three by herself. Smiling while holding her sword, Hikari says that now she will not lose to anyone. As he runs towards his destination, Shinagami wonders if all his friends will be okay. He finally finds a door after much running, and with his powerful sword, he makes a vertical cut to open it. The sight he sees is horrifying. Kazuya is tied to a pillar and extremely injured. With a careful sword movement, he breaks the chains binding the boy. He shakes his comrade, urging him to wake up and that they came to rescue him. With an expression full of rage, Kazuya says it's all AI's fault. But the protagonist ignores that and is happy that he is still conscious. And before they can leave the holding room, projectiles nearly hit them. The protagonist releases Kazuya for a moment to focus. He converts the impact of the fall into Gene and uses it to launch an attack. The blow hits the Lord squarely, and he feels the impact on his back. AI raises one arm to deliver a punch and uses the Kyuden-style Fajin power. And when they land on the ground, the boy is on top of his enemy, and the impact is extremely strong. Kazuya's memories return to the time when he was in training. He had always been the best until Shinagami appeared and stole all the spotlight. No one cares about Kazuya anymore. Everyone has their eyes only on the new hero. He repeats several times in his mind, who do they think he is? The enemy is firing multiple ice bullets, but with Gnosis power, all are blocked. And tirelessly, the Lord continues to strike towards the boys. The protagonist is already getting tired of having to block all the bullets. Meanwhile, injured, Kazuya remains on the ground immersed in his thoughts. The Lord Frost's ability is the luminescent refrigeration in his horns. They absorb energy and transform it into cold air that can be released through sweat glands. And he can form any type of object with ice, especially sharp projectiles. At full strength, he can create a blizzard that freezes anything and creates castles. AI is incapacitated from getting closer, and if it continues like this, Kazuya won't hold on. Frost is surprised that the boy still has the strength to worry about the other person. Since he didn't say this out loud, Shinagami is surprised that he noticed it. The enemy says that Kazuya revealed the secrets too quickly and that he is worthless. AI gets angry and tells the demon not to insult Kazuya like that. Frost, now knowing Kazuya's name, says that it is not a name worth remembering. The poor injured boy hears this and starts to tremble, unable to move much. According to the icy demon, the hero shouldn't use all his power to protect the weak, but he was looking forward to playing a little with the former king and his assimilated human. Although it's boring, he will simply forget about it, and he claims not to care. While being hit by several projectiles, AI starts to think of a way to get closer. Even though he is protecting Kazuya, AI's movements are more refined than usual, because when there is something to protect, our hero automatically becomes stronger. Still, the Lord's powers are too great for just the eye and nose to handle. The boy thinks he needs to do something even if he gets hit by the bullets. But a huge piece of ice approaches him, shaped like a scythe. Shinagami wasn't expecting this, and is scared by that deadly object. The thing is so powerful that the tower they are in suffers an explosion that can be heard from outside. As he falls, he wonders how it is possible that he made an ice scythe, and the boy realizes that his sword was cut along with his right hand. Shinagami fell from the tower, but his sword and Kazuya were left behind. Nosferatu appears and shouts the protagonist's name. He is still desperate, not knowing how to deal with that situation. Frost is outside the tower, floating, his horns shining like sapphires. He begins to charge a power in his hand. It is the ice stake bomb. But Shinagami is also preparing something. He uses the shadow bird with the fluid from his hand, and several fluid bats emerge from the hole where his hand was, but they are hit by ice. The Lord realizes that he is trying to make some move before falling, but he firmly believes that he will die now. To the villain's surprise, Kazuya appears falling on top of him with the protagonist's sword. The sword pierces the icy demon's neck, who feels the impact of the blow. Kazuya uses the weight of his body and balances on top of his opponent, while still holding the sword. The boy managed to use his last strength to wield the protagonist's sword, risking his life. The sword can extract ANF from people in just 1 second. Frost cannot move because this sword is not just an ordinary sword. The Lord cannot believe he will be defeated by an ordinary, worthless human. With all the hatred he had stored due to the torture, Kazuya grips the weapon, and he shouts for the bastard to remember that his name is Kazuya Tekaharu. Nosferatu watches that scene and comments that the coward has finally awakened. As AI always imagined, he believes that Kazuya is a formidable guy, and the protagonist takes this opportunity to charge at the enemy. The impact on the ground is so strong that it creates a gigantic crater. Our protagonist is on top of the villain, with one hand less. Kazuya managed to avoid the damage from the fall thanks to the little bats AI created. He runs towards his injured friend, shouting his name. Shinagami is happy because the boy is still alive. Well injured, Kazuya says he won't lose to anyone because he is number one. AI agrees and says that Kazuya is indeed very impressive. Nosferatu appears and says that at least in the final moment, he overcame his fears. Frost has been defeated. He needs to take Kazuya back to the ship and help his squad. But Nos interrupts, wanting to talk about the frost giant. He is still alive and begins to address Nos, saying that this is his destiny, that he is a traitor. But the Demon King says that it doesn't matter because now he is just an empty shell. Frost smiles with his last strength and says that he was clearly seen. Nosferatu agrees, saying that as king, he knows him better than anyone. And turning to AI, he says that he mentioned this enemy's ability before the operation began. AI says he is relieved that he only used his trick at the end. Nos explains that what they defeated is just an empty shell, but the true body is elsewhere. Frost says he feels humiliated, but in any case, his mission is to protect this land. The Demon King asks if the frozen demon still has his secret ambition. As he begins to melt, Frost says he enjoyed the battle and that his soul will burn along with the territory. And already almost turning to ashes, he says his last words, that the flame of the battle demon will not be extinguished. Shinigami asks his partner if he has any idea where Frost's true body is. Meanwhile, the guerrilla squad is battling fiercely to defeat the Keiki. Everyone is shooting with their new weapons and taking advantage of the abilities of their new outfits, including Hikari, who is handling the monsters very well even while alone. AI can see this thanks to his ability, and is happy that no one has died. He asks where Frost's body is, and Nos tells him that only one can defeat him. In the gigantic ice city, near the gate, Ryusei is sitting on a pile of bodies. Footsteps approach, walking through the soft snow. It is the true Lord Frost who comes closer with his eyes glowing red. Ryusei greets him, saying that it's been a while since they last saw each other. With a sinister smile, the frozen demon seems happy to see the strongest human. He remembers a battle they had in an active volcano. Ryusei believed he had managed to kill him, and was shocked to learn that he survived. Like a lizard, he split and survived after losing his tail. Frost explains that he managed to survive and develop the ability to split himself. He divided himself between the Lord and the warrior. His characteristics have always been originally problematic. After birth, he should have been immediately covered with ice. Otherwise, one day he would surely self-destruct. Kyuden says he understands because that right eye of his also brings difficult times sometimes. The captain stole that eye from the body that the Lord left behind, but now they will fight. The frozen demon seems excited for the clash with his old enemy. Smiling, Ryusei asks if he has become a bit more delicious, and teasing his opponent, he asks him to use the eye to find out. The enemy then uses his ice stake canopy ability and surrounds the man with ice shards. But this does not throw Kyuden off balance. He continues to smile. He never really used the eye he transplanted from Frost. And now he performs a tremor caused by Fajin and lifts all the ice around him. All of this is human techniques. He still hasn't used the Keiki eye until now, while the enemy forms an avalanche of ice spikes and sends it toward Ryusei. Frost ignored the smoke and manipulated the ice to create a wave. But at that moment, Kyuden was no longer there. He simply disappeared, and quickly reappeared behind his opponent, with his axe drawn. Frost creates a giant ice sword to block Ryusei's attack. In the last battle, Fajin was the key to Frost's defeat. He broke the sword to interrupt Kyuden's gene, and he says with conviction that the same trick will not work twice. But on the other side of the battlefield, Kyuden also does not give up and prepares. The true intentions of the two battle maniacs resonate in the fight. Both powers collide and form an explosion of sound that fills the area. Kyuden realizes the situation he is about to witness and asks if the appetizer is over. With eyes that seem to smile maliciously, Frost says that now the main course begins. One uses his limit release technique, and the other uses the demon eye activation. Far away, Nosferatu explains that Frost Giant is just a random name. His real name is Flame, and to keep burning, he uses himself as fuel, and if he continues, he will self-destruct. Kyuden and Flame change shape and become two giant beings, Flame Giant. On one side, the captain of the guerrilla squad is confident using his demonic eye, and on the other side, Flame is willing to use all his strength to keep burning. Both have the determination to die. Our video ends here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye bye.